and then I can, Okay, so I think we can start. Our guest today is Sakina Abbas. She is very much involved in Flutter community in Pakistan. Everywhere that Flutter is talked about in Pakistan, Sakina and Waleed, these guys are up there. They're very popular, and one indication of her popularity in the Flutter community is that when I posted about this talk a couple of days ago, like dozens and dozens of Flutter developers sort of liked that post, and they looked up my profile and they were asking me about the link to the talk. And so she is very popular, and she was in that event in IBA that Flutter community in Karachi organized, and I believe Google officially is supporting those events, and she will talk about how they get funding and encouragement for those events as well. She is Chief Executive Officer of ReacTree software company. She will talk about that, and previously she was Android developer. Now she is focusing full time on Flutter. She says she believes that most of our work in programming is inspired by games, another area that most of the students in our class absolutely love. And she's a graduate of NUST, I believe, National University of Computer and Emerging Sciences. She graduated, FAST. She graduated in 2019 with a BS in Computer Science. Before that, she was in the City School PAF chapter. She did her A-levels there. And with that, I welcome my guest. And Sakina, we're very happy to have you.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be here, and really glad that you invited me here. It's a really good opportunity. I've always wanted to interact with university students because, honestly speaking, after I graduated, in fact, while I was still in the process of graduating, I literally saw that there's this huge industry gap. So the people who are still enrolled in universities, they are literally studying in a separate universe, and then after you graduate, it's another universe out there. And many people, they don't know what that's like. So there's this really huge imbalance, which I believe it needs to be catered. So yeah, like while I was in the process of graduating, I really wanted an opportunity where I could, just directly engage, communicate with those students, maybe pass on some of my experiences to them so that they can learn something from that. And then, it would kind of really help them get on that right track, right? So I'm really glad for this opportunity, and thank you, sir, so much for this amazing introduction. So, hello and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Waise to he has already given you guys such a nice and very thorough introduction of me. So my name is Sakina Abbas, and I am the co-founder and CEO of ReacTree Private Limited. And even right now, I'm actually sitting in my office, and my team is just leaving. So right. So basically, where did it all start from? So yeah. As sir told you, I was studying in FAST University in Karachi. So obviously, I was studying a bachelor's in computer sciences, right? I think it was the second year, I believe it was my sophomore year, that when a friend of mine, he just approached me and he was like, hey, we have this idea for a startup. Are you in? Are you out? What's up? And I was like, okay. So before that, I always did want to, just have my own business and start something of my own. I wasn't really in the job mindset initially. So I gave it some thought, and I was like, yeah, it's something that's doable. Okay. So that's when we started working on our very first startup, which was called Eat Bazaar. What was Eat Bazaar? Eat Bazaar was basically Pakistan's first menu-based search engine for food. So it was basically, simply put, it was Google for food, right? So abhi kya hota hai? Like if you're craving something and you search for something on Google, so let's say you're searching for spaghetti or lasagna, तो एक फूड पांडा की लिंक ऊपर आ जाती है, सही है. एंड मतलब यूजुअली या तो फूड पांडा की आती है, उसके नीचे डिफरेंट the food the services that are providing food services, उन सब की लिंक्स आ रही होती हैं, उन सारे बिजनेसेस की लिंक्स आ रही होती हैं, ठीक है. तो that's literally it. And then even when you hit that link, you are essentially just seeing a list of restaurants, and even inside a particular application when you're searching for food, you basically essentially just get a list of restaurants, right? You don't exactly get in fact, back then, back in late 2017, उस वक्त ये वाला concept नहीं था. People had tried and tested it, but obviously they had abandoned it for some reason. And later on, when we did implement it, we figured out that with Eat Bazaar, even though the people liked it, the investors that we pitched it to, they liked it. We even did a pilot launch in a targeted area here in Karachi, and we did a launch in Dubai as well, and people loved it. But some people pointed it out to us that it's something that the world is not yet ready for. In fact, it's something that's not essentially a need right now. And startups, सिर्फ वही वाले स्टार्टअप्स हिट होते हैं जिनकी एक्चुअली या तो नीड ऑलरेडी एग्जिस्ट करती है मार्केट में, या जिसकी नीड आप क्रिएट कर सकते हो, ठीक है. जैसे फॉर इंस्टेंस इफ वी लुक एट एयरलिफ्ट, सही है, तो बिफोर एयरलिफ्ट there was no startup, at least in Pakistan, that was catering to carpooling का concept, सही है. It was all about ride hailing services जो कि करीम लेकर आ चुका था, बाइकें लेकर आ चुका था for bike users, but carpooling का as such concept नहीं था, at least in Pakistan, ठीक है. Then until a few years ago, I think in 2019, when they realized कि okay, this is already something that's happening in India and it's happening really well in India, तो वो फिर यहाँ पर airlift है, swivel was already there in Egypt, I think. तो यहाँ पर swivel और airlift दोनों एक साथ आ गए, ठीक है. तो उन्होंने उन्होंने नीड देखी मार्केट में कि ठीक है, यहाँ पर अभी करंटली क्या होता है कि जो मैसेज व्हेन दे आर ट्रैवलिंग टुगेदर, या अगर हम लोग वर्किंग क्लास या मिडिल क्लास की बात करें, तो मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम्स वी सी पीपल ट्रैवलिंग टुगेदर इन ग्रुप्स, right? Either in buses, either in vans. Like even अगर हम लोग offices को देखें, तो offices that are providing commute to their employees, तो वो अपनी वैन्स डिस्पैच करते हैं एंड एक वैन में जो है सब भर के जो है फिर वो जाते हैं, ठीक है. तो ऑब्वियसली द एंटरप्रेन्योर्स, द टेकप्रेन्योर्स ओवर हियर, दे सॉ दैट, दे वर लाइक के ओके, दिस इज समथिंग that can be worked on. Then they explored similar markets outside of Pakistan, like in India and Egypt, where similar services were already operating. And they were like, okay, if they're a success in those regions, then we can do that over here as well. And they did, and it worked. Like chakka lag gaya, you know. But obviously chakka aise nahi lagta hai, so yeah, before that you need to do a lot of research, a lot of study. You need to validate your idea. It's not just this ke ek raat aap so rahe, aapko ek bahut acha sa ख्वाब आया and you woke up and you're like, wow, this will make me a millionaire, and then you work on it and then you put it out in the market. And then the first thing that especially people who are still in university, because you know what, students like you, students like me, the people who are pursuing bachelor's in computer sciences or bachelor's in software engineering, तो उनके अंदर एक passion होता है that as soon as we graduate, we can create something of our own and we can make something huge out of it, ठीक है. ये होता है, it's innate, ठीक है, it's natural. तो obviously वो लोग जब create करते हैं तो फिर next step क्या होता है. अब ऑब्वियसली जब लिंक्डइन पर when you're looking के अच्छा इस वाले स्टार्टअप को इतनी फंडिंग मिल गई, उस वाले स्टार्टअप को इतनी फंडिंग मिल गई, or this startup got acknowledged by Forbes, or this person got acknowledged on Forbes 30 under 30, ठीक है. So when we get out in the market, we're looking for validation from investors, and we're essentially looking for investors to believe in our idea and give us funding so that we can create a fully functioning startup out of it, ठीक है. तो ये हमारा माइंडसेट होता है. बट ऑब्वियसली बिकॉज आई बीन थ्रू दैट जर्नी, आई रियली सॉ दैट इन्वेस्टमेंट इज नॉट द ओनली वे जिसमें आप अपना बिजनेस खड़ा कर सकते हैं, जिसमें आप अपना बिजनेस ग्रो कर सकते हैं. अगर मैं ReacTree की बात करूँ, ReacTree को किसी ने इन्वेस्टमेंट उसमें नहीं डाली थी, किसी ने फंडिंग नहीं की थी. We didn't have any investors, even our own parents, we didn't ask them for investment. सही है, हम लोगों ने जो कुछ भी किया है, we did bootstrapping. I'm pretty sure you guys are all aware of what bootstrapping is, right? तो वो हम लोगों ने पूरा bootstrapping से किया. We found our own clients. हम लोगों ने खुद से clients ढूंढे, उनके साथ projects किए, and then eventually हमारे साथ हमारे जो क्लाइंट्स हैं उनके साथ रिलेशनशिप्स अच्छी होती गई. They became our retainers, monthly retainers, yearly retainers. We started growing our team and so on and so forth. Okay, so it's a gradual process. So the first thing that you need to know is this: okay, even if you have a great idea, that's great. But in order to execute it, in order to make something out of it, you need to have a team that can back you up. So yeah, investors को foreign ढूंढना शुरू कर दिए, ठीक है, because that's obviously not a good approach. Investors आते हैं, बाद में आते हैं, शुरू से नहीं आते, ठीक है. Here, so I was talking about Eid Bazaar, and it was then that we realized that it was a very first world problem that we were trying to solve for a community that was not ready for it. The community had more serious problems that needed to be catered to. So yeah, so we eventually had to put a pause on Eid Bazaar, and we put it on a pause, and we started working on other things. Other things, में what were we working on? हम लोगों ने एक और प्रोडक्ट पर काम किया by the name of Rail Dost. At that time I was a native Android developer, and उस वक्त की बात है कि जब Flutter बहुत initial stages में थी, ठीक है. So not many people knew about it, and at that time I was into native Android. और ये तब की बात है जब Kotlin भी नहीं आया था, ठीक है. Kotlin आने वाला था. तो what I'm talking about is just plain old Java days. ठीक है, Kotlin आ गया, Jetpack Compose आ गया. There are so many things that are happening even in native Android. So yeah. So I started off as a native Android developer. Eid Bazaar, the पूरी जो application है वो native Android पर I created. Then Rail Dost, it was another product of ours which catered to some problems that are faced by travelers who prefer to travel by trains. सही है, in Pakistan. And as Pakistani, you guys know कि trains हमारी कितनी अच्छी है, उसकी services कितनी अच्छी है, सही है. तो उसकी कुछ problems को cater करने के लिए we created a product called Rail Dost, and there is this competition that's held every year by the name of EOGSEA. I don't know if you guys are aware of it. It stands for on Entrepreneurial Organization of something Southeast Asia, EOGSEA, ठीक है. वो basically एक competition होता है in which होता है कि पहले सिटी लेवल के ऊपर कंपटीशन होता है, देन नेशनल लेवल के ऊपर जिसमें सारी सिटी से लोग आते हैं. लास्ट टाइम जो फाइनल्स हुए थे, पाकिस्तान के जो फाइनल्स हुए थे, इट वाज हेल्ड इन लाहौर, ठीक है. So this is a competition which is basically attended or rather competed by university students, ठीक है. So the criteria is that you have to be enrolled in a university in order to compete in this. And होता क्या है कि being a university student, you should have created a product जिसको आप पिच कर सकें इन द सेंस के उसकी पूरी क्या कहते हैं, जो हम लोग इवैल्यूएशन जो हम लोग बनाते हैं कि कॉस्ट बेनिफिट एनालिसिस एंड द प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट एंड सॉल्यूशन, हाउ इज दिस प्रोडक्ट सॉल्विंग व्हिच पर्टिकुलर प्रॉब्लम एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ, मार्केट वैल्यू प्रोपोजिशन जो हम लोग पूरा बनाते हैं, ठीक है. सो इट्स ऑल अबाउट दैट. It's all about how what basically or how your product is solving a particular problem in the society, ठीक है. And then उसके ऊपर different evaluation उनके criteria होते हैं, and then eventually there I think कुछ I don't remember how many people are selected from each country, but some top winners of each country are selected, and then they compete on an international level, ठीक है. So it's pretty huge, it's pretty grand, उसमें cash prizes होते हैं and all that stuff. So the reason for mentioning that is this, because when we created when we created Rail Dost, not EOGSEA, we participated in EOGSEA back in 2019, and we came up as the first runner-up here in Karachi. Then one of our teammates, he also went to Lahore, but obviously the competition was very tough, so we didn't make it through the next round, but we did at least win in Karachi. So yeah. And then after that, obviously I had already graduated by then, and ReacTree was fully functioning, and we were working with different clients. Now, how did I find Flutter, or rather, how did Flutter find me, and how did I make that transition? So yeah, so as a business owner, ठीक है, what is your first priority? Obviously, the first thing that people would say, money, like the first thing that people hear of in business is they're like, business is equal to money. Okay? So where does that money come from? Okay? Obviously, from clients. You give your services to your clients, and say you earn revenue. Okay? Simple. It's just simple. 1 + 1 is equal to 2. But the next thing is this: it's not just about making money, it's also about sustaining yourself. And there are multiple aspects that are involved when you're running a business. So yeah, among which the most important aspect of running a business is how well you can manage your resources. So yeah, so by that time, I was only aware of native Android development, okay? And the clients that were approaching us, they wanted a solution on the same solution on Android as well as iOS, okay? So naturally, they when such a situation arose, हमारे पास क्या क्या options थे? अगर हमें native पे रहना था, तो that would mean that either I would have to learn native iOS myself, or I would have to hire someone who can do that for us. सही है? But इसमें इसका trade off क्या है? ठीक है? इसका trade off ये है that if you are hiring an additional resource for creating the exact same solution for iOS, it's not that much of an efficient or rather an effective use of your resources, okay? Because when cross-platform mobile application technologies are already there out in the market, like React or Ionic or Xamarin, Flutter, why would you go for native iOS, especially when you have just started your own business? You want to make the most optimal use of your resources, okay? Now, that was that time when Flutter was really booming and it was gaining traction. Not that much traction, but it was gaining momentum. I was seeing videos everywhere. I was seeing articles on my news feeds and so on and so on. So I was like, okay, let's give it a try, because unki USP kya thi? Literally, if you Google Flutter, even right now, the first link that opens up, the first link that appears in the Google search results, that would say, create beautifully looking application in the least possible time, something like that. Okay? Two words highlighted hote hain, beauty and least possible time. Now, obviously, as a layman who doesn't even know of Flutter yet, usko dekh kar kahega, this is clickbait. How's that even possible? So yeah, but obviously, naturally, when I give it a try, I actually saw that with Flutter that is possible. My first talk, which I gave for Flutter Karachi, Pakistan, that was literally Flutter development from an Android developer's perspective. And usme I highlighted all of the pain points that I faced in native Android development, which were not there in Flutter development. So native Android development, I don't know how many of you have some experience in native Android, but in native Android, जब आपको let's say एक simple list view आपको create करना है, ठीक है? फ्लटर में क्या होता है? फ्लटर में लिटरली इतना सा कोड आप लिखते हो, लिस्ट व्यू डॉट बिल्डर लगा लो, उसके अंदर आइटम्स डॉट लेंथ पास कर दो, श्रिंक रैप ट्रू कर दो, बिल्डर के अंदर आप अपना विजेट पास कर दो कि भाई फॉर इंस्टेंस मुझे ये लिस्ट स्टाइल जो है 8 दफा क्रिएट करके दे दो, ठीक है? वो लिटरली इतना छोटा सा ब्लॉक ऑफ कोड बनता है. नेटिव एंड्रॉइड में क्या होता है, स्पेशली इन जावा, पहले आप एक्सएमएल में उसका अलग से यूआई का कोड लिखो, ठीक है? उसके बाद आप जो है एक पूरा उसका अडेप्टर बनाओ, ठीक है? बिकॉज अडेप्टर में यू आर हैंडलिंग ऑल ऑफ दीज क्या कहते हैं स्क्रोलिंग इवेंट्स एंड एवरीथिंग, उसकी बेसिकली सारी चीज़ें आप उसके अडेप्टर में हैंडल कर रहे होते हो, ठीक है? फिर एक और क्लास बनती है लिस्ट व्यू की, ठीक है? जहाँ पर आप उसकी क्या कहते हैं उसका एक्चुअल में जो व्यू सेट कर रहे होते हो आईडी से, डेटाबेस की क्वेरी से आपके पास चीज़ें आ रही होती हैं, देन उसके अंदर आप अडेप्टर्स को यूज़ कर रहे होते हो. सो इट्स लाइक अ 3 level प्रोसेस, ठीक है? एटलीस्ट इन जावा इट्स अ 3 level प्रोसेस. अब दैट कंपेयर दैट with literally this block of code in Flutter, that would really make your life so much easier, right? So that's just one small example where I really started to develop a liking for Flutter over native Android. Obviously, initially I had a learning curve because native Android के अंदर जब आप UI बना रहे होते हो तो you can side में जो है एक screen बनी हुई होती है जहाँ पर आप drag and drop करके भी कर सकते हो, जहाँ पर आप जब कोड लिख रहे होते हो तो there and then आपको चीजें नजर आ रही होती हैं, ठीक है. So obviously that was one thing which was not there in Flutter. The other thing was this, that Flutter follows a tree structure. So yeah, so you're writing your as you're writing your widgets, as you're coding your UI, everything's happening inside a tree. Okay, nested, nested, nested. So naturally, this was something also that was different from native Android. But eventually, when you get a hold of it with practice, 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 then it stops bothering you after a while. And in fact, you start to develop a liking for it. Okay? So that was one thing. So this is where when I started to delve into Flutter, I realized that okay, this is something which is really nice, because with Flutter, आप same code base लिखते हो and multiple platforms के लिए same solution deploy not deploy but produce हो जाते हैं, ठीक है, for Android, for iOS, and even for web, for Mac OS, for desktop Linux. There are multiple platforms that are now supported in Flutter 2.0, right? So naturally, it was a really good point for us because now when we were getting those clients, we didn't have to say no to them, or we didn't have to think a lot that okay, शायद native iOS पर हम लोग ना कर सकें, but Android पर हम लोग कर लें. Because with Flutter, uh, literally the same code base, you don't even have to make that many changes. You get the same application on Android and iOS as well. So that was literally the selling point for me, where I chose Flutter over Android, and that's when I made my transition from Android to Flutter. Okay? So since then, what are the applications that I have worked on so far? Okay, quite a lot. So and quite a lot in quite different applications. So yeah. Um, I have developed an application, a networking application for a client, a conferencing application for a client. We recently created an application for Coffee Wagera. If you guys know of that, it's a very famous coffee franchise here in Pakistan. And उन लोगों के लिए हम लोगों ने loyalty system की पूरी application develop की, and we released that on 1st Feb, and within 2 weeks, 14th Feb को we had like 700 plus downloads or something like that. Okay? Yeah, it was 700 plus downloads or something like that. And as of now, it's above 2K downloads. So yeah, and the March is ending. Okay? So it's been just like 2 months. So yeah. So that was one thing. Then say we even more opportunities opened up for us when people saw that application. They were like, you have no idea how many different vendors have approached us that we want a similar thing over here, and we had to say yes to some of them, we had to say no to some of them, because obviously we're also working at a capacity here. So उसमें ये हो रहा था कि naturally, मतलब why were we even saying yes to them? Because we know that we have the same code base which will be replicated for each of them. Zyada changes nahi karni hongi. It's just like plus minus 10, 20, right? And it's the same code base. से आपके पास Android के ऊपर भी चीजें निकलेंगी, iOS के ऊपर भी चीजें निकलेंगी, with very few code changes, literally. ठीक है? So that's why we were able to say yes to few of our clients and to delay some of our clients that were fully engaged right now, and we'll definitely take these projects once we're free, right? So this is how literally Flutter helps you. It saves your time in a lot of things. So yeah, then there were some applications. There was another application. In fact, there is another application that we're currently developing. For Netherlands, उनकी पूरी e-commerce का एक system है. We have 3 different apps on the mobile side, 3 different apps on the website. It's a pretty huge system with a very well thought out architecture. ठीक है? तो इसके ऊपर फ्लटर के ऊपर किस तरह से स्केलेबिलिटी को हैंडल करना है, किस तरह से सिक्योरिटी को टैकल करना है, किस तरह से अगर यूएक्स की बात की जाए तो किस तरह से एनिमेशंस करना है, व्हाट एलिमेंट्स डू वी ऐड इन दैट टू मेक द एप्लीकेशन मोर एज यूजर फ्रेंडली एज पॉसिबल. ठीक है? So doing all of that stuff in Flutter was, you have no idea how much easier than it was in Android. And only those of you who have done even just a little bit of Android development and you are currently pursuing Flutter development, you guys will understand कि कितना बड़ा difference है, ठीक है? So these were some of the projects that I've worked on in a professional capacity. ठीक है? अब आ जाते हैं pet projects के ऊपर, which is kind of like the core talk, the core essence of today's talk, game development. So I am a huge game enthusiast. So yeah, I love playing games on PC, consoles. I have a Nintendo Switch, and because I grew up playing lots of games, so I obviously have this thing in me that I want to create a game by myself. Pehle, I did do a little bit of Unity. I don't know if you guys have tried Unity, but Unity is like you need to dedicate a specific amount of time and a specific amount of energy just to learn Unity, ठीक है? Because it's quite advanced. उसमें बहुत सारी चीज़ें हो रही होती हैं. उसमें scenes आप create कर रहे होते हो, sprites create कर रहे होते हो. उसकी जो गेम की जो लॉजिक होती है, जो प्रोग्रामिंग होती है, वो C# में होती है, and there's another language I don't remember. So obviously there are multiple facets that are involved in that, ठीक है? Like they're proper professional Unity developers. So yeah. So there was a time when I did learn a little bit of Unity, but then naturally I could not commit to it because it required a lot, which I couldn't commit to it at that time. So I stopped it. So yeah. So while I was doing Flutter development and I started to gain some confidence that okay, now I know how to do this in Flutter. I was like, let's test the limits of Flutter. ठीक है, ये जो हर टॉक में हम लोग कहते हैं Flutter this, Flutter that, Flutter is performant by default. Flutter का एक अपना जो rendering engine है, जो ग्राफिक इंजन है जिसके ऊपर वो सारी चीज़ें रेंडर करते हैं, दैट्स कॉल्ड स्किया. तो वो कहते हैं कि हर टॉक में आपने सुना होगा फ्लटर इज परफॉर्मेंट बाय डिफॉल्ट एंड फ्लटर इज फास्ट एंड फ्लटर इज दिस एंड फ्लटर इज दैट, ठीक है? ये मैंने भी टॉक्स में सुने हैं और मैंने भी टॉक्स में कहा है, बट ऑब्वियसली बिफोर आई डिड दैट आई वाज लाइक लेट्स ट्रूली टेस्ट द लिमिट्स ऑफ फ्लटर कि किस हद तक हम इसको निचोड़ सकते हैं, ठीक है? तो let me just share my screen over here and let me give you a quick glance of what kind of games I have developed so far. So just give me a sec. Okay. All right. Is my screen visible to you guys?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. Okay. So this is the first game that I developed in Flutter, ठीक है? इसके अंदर मैंने कोई स्टेट मैनेजमेंट प्रैक्टिसेस टेक्निक्स यूज नहीं की थी. इट्स ऑल लिटरली पूरी सेट स्टेट के ऊपर ये गेम बनी हुई है. इस गेम को बनाने के मल्टीपल रीजंस थे, सही है? नाउ इफ यू गाइस हैव प्लेड गेम्स लाइक बबल शूटर, ठीक है? तो बबल शूटर में क्या होता है कि हर लेवल के ऊपर एक स्पेसिफिक पैटर्न के अंदर आपके पास मल्टी कलर्ड बॉल्स अरेंज हुई हुई होती है एंड आपके पास एक शूटर होता है जिसमें लाइन बाय लाइन एक एक कलर की बॉल्स आती रहती हैं एंड देन यू आल्सो हैव पावर अप्स. तो उसका क्रक्स क्या होता है दैट फॉर इंस्टेंस इफ यू हैव अ ब्लू बॉल, तो आपको उस ब्लू बॉल को एक ऐसे रीजन में शूट करनी है जहाँ पर मैक्सिमम अमाउंट ऑफ ब्लू बॉल्स हों ताकि वो मिनिमम बॉल यूजेज के साथ मैक्सिमम हिट्स हो, ठीक है? दैट्स द क्रक्स. अब उसमें होता क्या था, उसमें होता ये था कि इट्स बेसिकली अ नेवर एंडिंग गेम, ठीक है? आप उसको लिटरली कभी खत्म नहीं कर पाओगे बिकॉज हर लेवल के बाद कोई नया लेवल आ जाता है एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. एंड कुछ गेम्स में उनके अपने अपने रूल्स होते हैं, सही है? सो दीज वर द टू थिंग्स दैट आई पिक्ड अप व्हिच आई वांटेड टू सी कि ये अगर हम लोग कोड वाइज हैंडल करते हैं तो इसको किस तरह से कर सकते हैं. तो इसमें the crux of this game was dynamic rule generation. तो the rules that you're seeing here in the GIF that's playing on the right, ये कोई static hard coded rules नहीं है. ये जितने भी रूल्स आ रहे हैं ये डायनामिकली जनरेट होके आ रहे हैं हर लेवल के ऊपर, सही है? इसमें लेवल मैनेजमेंट हुई हुई है इन द सेंस के पूरी उसमें यू लूज या गेम ओवर या नेक्स्ट लेवल अप, इन सारे लेवल मैनेजमेंट की कोडिंग हुई हुई है. देन द नेक्स्ट थिंग इज दिस दैट दिस गेम हैज unlimited levels, so it's like this level 1 is the easiest, then as you you proceed towards level 2, level 3, level 4 and so on and so forth, डिफिकल्टी लेवल उस हिसाब से बढ़ता रहता है, आपके रूल्स उस हिसाब से चेंज होते रहते हैं. तो अभी एज ऑफ नाउ इसमें जो रूल्स मैंने डाले हुए हैं वो 3 टाइप्स के रूल्स हैं. सही है. एक टाइप ऑफ रूल इज दिस कि यू हैव टू पॉप the bubbles of the same color. जैसे अगर ऊपर लिखा हुआ है pop the reds, then you just have to pop all the red bubbles जो कि यहाँ पर आ रहे हैं. सही है. Then the next thing is this कि you have to pop the bubbles that are only multiples of x, where x can be any number. It could be 17, it could be 2, it could even be 1. सही है. तो इसमें bubbles जो है वो उन numbers के साथ marked होके आ रहे होंगे and उनको आपने pop करने. Like if it's pop the multiples of 2, then 2, 4, 6, 8 वाले सारे आपको pop करने हैं. सही है. Then another is this, pop the bubbles that are red and multiples of x. सही है. तो इसमें आपको थोड़ा देखे करने की इस तरह से करना है. इसमें 3 और लेवल्स मैंने इंट्रोड्यूस इनफैक्ट करवाए थे विच वाज टाइमर बेस्ड. तो एक टाइमर चल रहा है, टाइमर के अंदर अब आपने पॉप द रेड्स करने, या टाइमर के अंदर आपने पॉप द मल्टीपल्स ऑफ 2 करने, या टाइमर के अंदर आपने पॉप द red bubbles which are multiples of 2. ठीक है. So the possibilities are infinite. सही है. तो इस हिसाब से एक बहुत ही डायनामिक रूल्स के ऊपर ये गेम मैंने क्रिएट की थी without using any providers or blocks for state management. Set state के ऊपर ये पूरी की पूरी गेम बनी हुई है, and it has infinite levels. Difficulty with levels increase होती जाती है. It's 100% offline, and this is literally the first game that I created, and it took me about 3 days to create this game, literally. ठीक है. So this is the kind of time that you can expect. Even अगर आप बहुत ही कोई simple सी game भी बना रहे हैं ना, तो आपको कम से कम इतने दिन लग जाएंगे, and maximum तो खैर it obviously depends on everyone's skills and practice. सही है. तो ये वाला सीन है. But in today, the game that we will be looking at is this one. This is one of my favorites. I created this back in December as part of my session. We gave a session with ReacTree in collaboration with Folio 3 in collaboration with Flutter Karachi. So my talk over there was actually this exact talk, game development in Flutter. Though I don't know if you guys are aware of Neon Cat. It's a very famous meme from back then. And yeah, so basically the crux of this is this, that we have this neon cat. For simplicity's sake, I'll just call it cat. Okay. This cat likes to eat donuts. So हमारे पास we have these flying donuts, and this is a cat, and जो कि center से start होगी, donuts अपनी जगह पर fly करते रहेंगे. इसमें फिलहाल सिर्फ vertical gestures implement हुए हैं. So you swipe up, the cat will go up. You swipe down, the cat will go down. ठीक है. इस तरह से जब वो एक डोनट जैसे जैसे खाती रहेगी, तो इसके साथ आपका ऊपर एक स्कोर इंक्रीमेंट होता जाएगा. ठीक है. This is for now it's an infinite game loop. इसके अंदर मैंने कोई game over की condition नहीं लगाई है, but you can definitely do that with a simple timer. कि for instance आपने 10 सेकंड का timer लगाया है, जिसके अंदर आपने for instance 20 donuts खाने हैं. ठीक है. अगर आपने नहीं खाया तो it's game over. Then आप next level के अंदर आप for instance donuts की speed को increase कर सकते हैं, या कुछ भी कर सकते हैं. ठीक है. It's all about the creativity and the thought process. So yeah. So this is a game that I created again using the normal set state, no providers or anything for state management. तो इसमें कोई मैंने out of the box कोई library use नहीं की है, सब कुछ अपना custom code है. And when you will see कि इसका code कितना simple है, you will realize कि how simple and easy it is to create any game in Flutter. ठीक है. तो इसके लिए what exactly do you need? The first thing, obviously, you need the UI code for the game screen, this blue screen that you see over here. Then you need the UI code for the characters being the cat and the donuts. Then you need some animation code, animation के किस तरह से donuts render हो रहे हैं, किस तरह से cat react कर रही है based on gestures. ठीक है. You obviously need a good knowledge of how gesture detectors work. कौन से gesture detectors use करने, it's entirely up to you. इसमें आप horizontal swipe भी डाल सकते हैं, मैंने फिलहाल नहीं डाला हुआ है, फिलहाल it's just vertical gestures. सही है. And the most important thing is game logic and state management. So yeah, so without further ado, let's quickly have a look at our code. I think I'll have to reshare my screen since I'm just sharing one window. Just give me a sec. Um, just give me a minute. I'm getting an urgent call. Um, right. Okay. Let me just quickly increase the font size. Um, right. Settings. All right. I hope it's visible to you guys. Okay. So basically, let me just give you a quick walkthrough of the project structure that we have here. Main.dart is doing nothing. It's just showing our game screen. Game screen is where all of our magic is happening. And then we have two separate files. One is called cat.dart and one is called collectible.dart. And as you can see, cat.dart it's just a stateless widget. We're building a container with a fixed width, and इसके child में मैंने image.asset दिया हुआ है where I'm just passing this PNG file from my assets folder. Then for the donut, I also have this collectible class. That's also a stateless widget. You can ignore this random for now. We have a fixed height and a fixed width of 60. And also similar to the cat file, we have this image being passed from our assets folder as the child. Okay? It's a donut.png. So that's how we have achieved this this kind of look. Okay? Now let's look at the actual magic, which is the game screen. Game screen के अंदर हम लोग क्या कर रहे हैं? The first thing that you would notice is that obviously it's a stateful widget because you need to use set state. Then we have a couple of variables initialized at the top. We have cat, y-axis, x-axis, candy, one-axis, x-axis, y-axis, and same thing for candy 2, candy 3. ठीक है? अच्छा, before I actually delve into the technical details over here, एक्सेस किस तरह से यहाँ पर फ्लटर के अंदर मैनेज और मेंटेन हो रहे होते हैं, ठीक है? नॉर्मली हमारे पास क्या होता है कि एक्स एक्सिस इट इज पॉजिटिव ऑन द राइट साइड एंड इट्स नेगेटिव ऑन द लेफ्ट साइड, and the y-axis it's negative on the bottom side and it's positive on the top side. X-axis Flutter में भी वैसा का वैसे ही रहता है, सिर्फ y-axis kind of flipped होता है as per our knowledge of the normal जो axis की हमारे पास knowledge होती है, ठीक है? In the sense कि हमारे पास if I'm talking about y-axis is equal to let's say minus 0.1, तो मैं नीचे की बात नहीं कर रही, मैं ऊपर की बात कर रही हूँ. And similarly if I'm talking about y-axis is equal to 0.1, तो मैं नीचे की बात कर रही हूँ. सही है? तो this is just a difference of axis जो कि यहाँ पर होता है. सही है? अच्छा, अब by default अगर आपने 0,0 पास किया हुआ है तो it would start in the very middle of the screen, ठीक है? तो even if you would have noticed कि जहाँ पर शुरू पे tap to play आ रहा होता है तो हमारी cat बिल्कुल center में located होती है and then donuts अपनी अपनी scattered position से आ रहे होते हैं, ठीक है? तो कैट को हम लोगों ने बाय डिफॉल्ट 0,0 दिया हुआ है एंड अपने बाकी ये जो डोनेट्स हैं उनके अपनी अपनी वैल्यूज दी हुई हैं, सही है। Then we have a variable for score. Then we have a couple of flags for right, left, top, bottom के किस direction में user ने movement की है. And then we have the last flag for a game started के game अभी start हो चुकी है या नहीं हुई है, सही है। In our build method, as you can see, we have our scaffold, and scaffold के अंदर हमारी जो body है, that the entire body has been wrapped with a gesture detector, ठीक है। हॉरिजॉन्टल ड्रैग के लिए ये वाला मैंने फिलहाल कमेंट आउट किया हुआ है। वर्टिकल ड्रैग के लिए अच्छा, अब द थिंग इज दिस के इफ यू हैव वर्कड विद जेस्चर डिटेक्टर्स इन फ्लटर, तो you know of some vanilla functions that are there, like on tap, on long pressed, and these are some of the basic functions that are there जो कि हम लोग रोजमर्रा की डेवलपमेंट में यूज कर रहे होते हैं, सही है। अब what I needed was कि जब यूजर उसको ऊपर स्वाइप करे या नीचे स्वाइप करे, कहीं भी वर्टिकल डायरेक्शन में हल्का सा स्वाइप करे, तो एक कोई फंक्शन हो जो ट्रिगर हो, सिर्फ एक दफा ट्रिगर हो, हर उसके जितनी देर तक यूजर की फिंगर स्क्रीन के साथ कांटेक्ट में है, तो उतनी देर तक जो है, उतने टाइम्स जो है वो जो फंक्शन है वो बार बार ट्रिगर ना हो, सही है। तो इनिशियली आई वाज वर्किंग विद अ सेपरेट फंक्शन, बट उसमें इट वाज बीइंग ट्रिगर्ड अगेन एंड अगेन एंड अगेन। After I did a bit of research on GitHub and Stack Overflow, I came across this function called onVerticalDragOn. So what this does is this कि अगर यूजर ने स्वाइप अप या स्वाइप डाउन किया, ठीक है, चाहे वो जितने फ्रेम्स में कर रहा हो, चाहे वो जितने ड्यूरेशन तक उसका जो फिंगर है वो स्क्रीन के साथ इन कॉन्टैक्ट है, ये वाला फंक्शन सिर्फ एक ही दफा ट्रिगर होगा, ठीक है, विच इज एग्जैक्टली व्हाट वी वांट हियर, सही है। तो इधर यहाँ पर आई हैव डन कि इफ गेम हैज ऑलरेडी स्टार्टेड, तो ऑब्वियसली वो ऑन मतलब अप एंड डाउन के ऊपर रिएक्ट करेगा, बट नेचुरली इफ द गेम हैज नॉट येट स्टार्टेड एंड वो ऊपर नीचे करे तो कुछ भी नहीं होना चाहिए। वो वाली चीज़ हमने ऑन टैप के अंदर हैंडल की है, बिकॉज वी जस्ट वांट के सिंगल टैप से गेम स्टार्ट हो, एंड वंस द गेम हैज स्टार्टेड देन द यूजर कैन स्वाइप अप एंड डाउन इन ऑर्डर टू प्ले दैट गेम, सही है। तो अब पहले यूआई का कोड देख लेते हैं, फिर हम लोग फंक्शंस को देख लेते हैं, ठीक है। तो यूआई के कोड के अंदर हमारे पास ये जेस्चर डिटेक्टर है where we have these functions implemented. Then after that we have a column which has expanded ताकि वो full screen को ले रहा हो. Then we also have a stack. Stack के अंदर you can see I have used 4 animated containers. The first animated container is for the cat, and the 3 animated containers over here, they're for each of my donuts. सही है। कैट के एनिमेटेड कंटेनर को देख लेते हैं। वी हैव एन एनिमेटेड कंटेनर, उसमें अलाइनमेंट में उसका एक्स एक्सिस वाई एक्सिस प्रोवाइड किया हुआ है। ड्यूरेशन में हमने खुद से डिफाइन किया हुआ है कि इधर हमने 0 किया हुआ है, क्योंकि एक्चुअल में जो एनिमेशन की ड्यूरेशन है वो नीचे हम लोग टाइमर के थ्रू फ्रेम्स पर सेकेंड के ऊपर हम लोग हैंडल कर रहे हैं, ठीक है। तो ये हमारे पास है, एंड उसके अंदर हम लोगों ने कैट को मतलब कैट का विजेट हम लोगों ने उसको डाला, ठीक है। Other than that, we also have for the donuts, we have each of these animated containers. जिसके अंदर again we have their x-axis, y-axis, duration, and collectible widget, which I showed you earlier. Then kind of like the last thing that we have is if game has already started, then show nothing. Otherwise, if game has not yet started, तो tap to play का एक text ऊपर show हो जाए। उसके अलावा उसके नीचे एक स्कोर जो है वो हमारा शो हो जाए एक टेक्स्ट विजेट के अंदर, ठीक है। तो एज यू कैन सी, इफ यू हैव बीन प्रैक्टिसिंग फ्लटर फॉर लाइक 2 to 3 weeks, तो you would have already been aware of most of the widgets that I've used here: container, padding, alignment, text, text style, align, animated container, ठीक है। So nothing that different or nothing that extraordinary or difficult to implement, so yeah. Now let's look at the functions. First, let's look at this start game function here, which is like if game has started, then obviously there will be no function on tap. But if game has not yet started and we press tab, तो start game का function हमारा call होगा, ठीक है। Now हमारा जो actual जो सारी चीजें हो रही है वो start game के अंदर ही हो रही है, ठीक है। स्टार्ट गेम कर क्या रहा है? सबसे पहले तो वो ऑब्वियसली सेट स्टेट के अंदर गेम स्टार्टेड इज इक्वल टू ट्रू करेगा, ताकि हमारा जो जितने भी गेम स्टार्टेड से रिलेटेड विजेट्स आ रहे हैं वो हमारे पास they should no longer be there. ठीक है, that's why we've wrapped this inside set state. उसके बाद we have a timer for 60 milliseconds. सही है, उस timer के अंदर कर क्या रहे हैं? Set state के अंदर there are a couple of things that are happening. ये जितने भी हमारे पास डोनेट्स है उन सब के एक्स एक्सिस में मैंने 0.05 माइनस कर दिया एंड 2 चेक्स यहाँ पर लगे हुए हैं जिसके ऊपर मैं बाद में आती हूँ. ठीक है, तो ये जो आपको डोनेट्स की मूवमेंट नजर आ रही है ना, ये लिनियर मूवमेंट किस तरह से हो रही है फॉर एवरी 60 मिलीसेकंड्स, हर 60 मिलीसेकंड के अंदर वो 0.05 माइनस हो रहा है. ठीक है, तो ये जिस तरह से टाइमर चल रहा है तो माइनस 0.05 0.5 0.5 इस तरह से वो माइनस होते होते इस तरह से मूव कर रहा है. ठीक है, तो ये तो हो गया काम डोनेट का. अब हम देख लेते हैं कि बाकी की क्या चीज़ हो रही है. तो उससे पहले हम लोग देख लेते हैं कि इनफैक्ट पहले डोनेट्स को ही कवर कर लेते हैं, फिर हम कैट को कवर कर लेते हैं एंड अपने जेस्चर्स को देख लेते हैं, कोलिजन्स को देख लेते हैं. सही है. अच्छा, अब सीन कुछ ऐसा होता है कि हमारे पास जो फ्लटर में एक्सेस होते हैं उसमें द मिनिमम वैल्यू दैट यू कैन हैव इज -1. -1 मीन्स end of the left screen and +1 means end of the right screen. Similarly, y-axis में -1 means you're right at the top and +1 means you're right at the bottom. सही है. अब इसमें जो है ये जो मैंने 2 चेक्स, ये जो 3 blocks of code लिखे हुए हैं, ठीक है, जिसमें essentially हो ये रहा है कि if the donut's x-axis is less than -2 तो इसमें plus equal to 3.5 कर दो. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because for every 60 milliseconds जो ये -0.05 जो हो रहा है, तो इससे हो ये रहा है कि कुछ टाइम के बाद ये डोनेट्स बिल्कुल स्क्रीन से डिसअपियर हो जाएंगे. ठीक है, नाउ बिकॉज वी वांट दिस गेम टू बी रनिंग इन अ कांस्टेंट लूप, तो यूजर को ये इम्प्रेशन देने के लिए कि नहीं ये वाले जो डोनेट्स गए वो तो चले गए, अब जो आ रहे हैं वो नए आ रहे हैं. तो ये एक्चुअली न्यू डोनेट्स आ कहाँ से रहे हैं? वो इससे आ रहे हैं. जस्ट सिंपल मैथ्स दैट अगर ये -2 हो गए यानी कि वो -1 के बियॉन्ड जा चुके हैं, ठीक है, बहुत ज़्यादा बियॉन्ड जा चुके हैं, तो इसमें हम लोग प्लस इक्वल टू 3.5 करें ताकि अब वो इस वाली स्क्रीन के बियॉन्ड थोड़ा सा है. जिस तरह से टाइमर रिलैप्स होता जाएगा, जिस तरह से टाइमर प्रोग्रेस होता जाएगा, उस हिसाब से हमारे पास वो -0.05 करते करते वो फाइनली फोकस में रेंडर हो जाएंगे, स्क्रीन के ऊपर रेंडर हो जाएंगे एंड देन वो अगेन अपनी साइकिल कंप्लीट करके लेस दैन -2 चले जाएंगे. ठीक है, so it's just simple math that I've used here in just to give the player the impression कि नहीं अब जो डोनेट्स आ रहे हैं वो newly rendered डोनेट्स आ रहे हैं. ठीक है, तो ये जो काम किया हुआ है ये उस वाली चीज को कैटर करने के लिए किया हुआ है. सही है. अच्छा, अब हम लोग देख लेते हैं कि कैट की मूवमेंट किस तरह से हो रही है. सही है. The function that I initially spoke of on vertical dragging, what does it do? ये हमें एक ऐसा ऑब्जेक्ट प्रोवाइड करता है जिसके अंदर कुछ ऐसी इंफॉर्मेशन होती है दैट वी कैन यूज इन ऑर्डर टू डिटरमिन कि प्राइमरली यूजर ने स्वाइप अप किया है या स्वाइप डाउन किया. सही है. This is done through primary velocity. So if the primary velocity is less than 0 of drag and details, तो इसका मतलब ये that we have to go up, and if it's greater than 0 then we have to go down. ठीक है, so I've made these two functions go up and go down. Go up में हम लोग कर क्या रहे हैं, अगेन सेट स्टेट के अंदर बॉटम को हम लोग फॉल्स करें, टॉप को ट्रू करें बिकॉज वी आर गोइंग अप, एंड सिमिलरली गो डाउन हम लोग बिल्कुल रिवर्स कर रहे हैं, हम लोग टॉप को फॉल्स कर रहे हैं एंड बॉटम को ट्रू कर रहे हैं. ठीक है, सो दैट्स प्रीटी मच इट. नाउ लेट्स कम बैक टू आवर स्टार्ट गेम फंक्शन. अब स्टार्ट गेम फंक्शन में द 2 blocks of code that we left out were this. ठीक है, इसको हम लोग सेट स्टेट में कर रहे हैं. If top is true and cat y-axis is greater than -0.9, यानी कि -0.9 का मतलब क्या है कि it's somewhat lower than the above वाले, मतलब it's not entirely touching the screen, उससे थोड़ा सा नीचे है. ठीक है, उस पॉइंट के ऊपर हम लोग ये कर रहे हैं कि अगर यूजर ने स्वाइप किया है तो इट्स गोइंग अप. ठीक है, अब because we don't want the cat to go out of the focus like the donuts are doing, क्योंकि donuts के ऊपर तो फिर भी बनता है constant game loop, but your cat, it has to be in focus on the screen at all times. So just to ensure that the cat does not exit the screen ऊपर से या does not exit the screen नीचे से, हम लोगों ने ये चेक लगाया है कि अगर टॉप की मूवमेंट हुई है तो उसमें उस वैल्यू में से थोड़ा सा वैल्यू माइनस कर दें, एंड अगर बॉटम की मूवमेंट हुई है तो उसमें से थोड़ा सा वैल्यू प्लस कर दें, ताकि वो नीचे तक रहे और जिस तरह से टाइमर चलता रहे वो बिल्कुल ऑफ द स्क्रीन ना चली जाए, ठीक है. सो दैट्स व्हाट्स हैपनिंग ओवर हियर. Now let's look at the main thing, which is check collision. So check collision क्या है कि अगर cat एक डोनेट की बहुत ही क्लोज प्रॉक्सिमिटी में आ जाती है तो इट हैज टू ईट दैट, ठीक है. तो इसका मतलब ये कि उस पॉइंट पर दो काम होने चाहिए. काम क्या होने चाहिए? दैट द डोनेट जिसके साथ वो बहुत ही क्लोज प्रॉक्सिमिटी में आई है, दैट डोनेट शुड disappear quote unquote, एंड हमारा ऊपर स्कोर इंक्रीमेंट होना चाहिए, ठीक है. So let's look into that कि वो किस तरह से हुआ है. So we have this method called check collision, and what it's doing is this कि ये मैं x axis y axis की basis पर proximity को manage कर रही हूँ. So either what I've done is this: the first thing that you will notice is that if a donut is less than 0.2 and it's greater than minus 0.2, इसका मतलब ये था कि donut जिसकी प्रॉक्सिमिटी हम लोग चेक कर रहे हैं वो सेंट्रल रीजन हो, ठीक है. एग्जैक्ट 0,0 पर ना हो, बिकॉज ऑब्वियसली वो तो टाइमर के साथ मतलब हर 60 मिली सेकेंड्स के ऊपर वो 0.05 से अपडेट हो रहा है, तो 0,0 के ऊपर तो करना वुड बी वेरी डिफिकल्ट. सही है. सो वी हैव गिवन इट अ विंडो ऑफ माइनस 0.2 से लेके 0.2 तक के इतना एरिया है बीच का जिसके अंदर हम प्रॉक्सिमिटी चेक करें, क्योंकि हमारा कैट भी इसी रीजन के अंदर घूम रही है, ठीक है. The next thing that I've done here is that जो cat का y axis है उसको उस कैंडी के y axis से माइनस किया है एंड चेक कराया है कि क्या is this greater than or equal to 0, and but at the same time it's also less than 0.1. So the window for the proximity on the y axis that I've said here is 0 से लेके 0.1. अगर एक डोनट और एक कैट के बीच में 0.1 का मैक्सिमम डिस्टेंस है, देन कंसिडर इट एज अ कोलिजन. सही है. तो उसके ऊपर हम लोग कोलिजन को चेक करें, तो इस पॉइंट पर हम लोग कर ये रहे हैं कि ये बिकॉज वी हैव three donuts here, तो we have 3 blocks of code. अगर donut 2 के साथ collision हुए तो I'm returning 2, अगर donut 1 के साथ हुए तो I'm returning 1, and अगर 3 के साथ हुए तो I'm returning 3, ठीक है. And by default I'm just returning 0 अगर कोई भी qualify नहीं करता है, ठीक है. इसका मकसद क्या है? इसका मकसद ये है बिकॉज आई नीड दीज नंबर्स ताकि मैं आइडेंटिफाई करा सकूं कि कौन सा डोनेट है जिसके साथ कोलिजन हुआ है, ताकि उसको मैं quote unquote स्क्रीन से गायब करा सकूं, ठीक है. अब वो हम गायब करा किस तरह से रहे? So we have this switch statement जिसके ऊपर we're passing this collision value which we received from check collision, and for case 1 what we're doing is this. If we're talking about case 1, that means we're talking about donut 1. That means कि collision donut 1 के साथ हुआ है. So in that case we're just doing set state and donut 1 x-axis plus equal to 2. Now if you recall what we're exactly doing here is that center region में था, ठीक है. डोनेट कैट के साथ कोलिजन में आया, उसने डिटेक्ट किया, उसने रिटर्न किया 1, ठीक है. अभी उसकी वैल्यू लेट्स से 0 है एट दिस पॉइंट, ठीक है, या लेट्स से 0.1 है, ठीक है. उसने कहा कि ठीक है कोलिजन हो गया, अब 0.1 को हमने कर दिया +2, तो इसका मतलब कि अब उसकी एक्स एक्सिस की वैल्यू हो गई 2.1, एंड 2.1 कहाँ एग्जिस्ट करता है? ऑन द राइट साइड ऑफ द स्क्रीन, बियॉन्ड द स्क्रीन, ठीक है. तो यूजर को ये इंप्रेशन मिल रहा है कि इट हैज लिटरली बीन ईटन अप, बट ऐसा नहीं है. ऑन कोलिजन द डोनेट इज जस्ट डिसअपीयरिंग ऑफ द स्क्रीन, राइट साइड की तरफ जा रहा है, ताकि नेक्स्ट टाइम वो जो है हमारे पास नेक्स्ट जो हमारा जो भी जिस तरह से टाइमर चल रहा है तो उस हिसाब से हमारे पास स्क्रीन के ऊपर रेंडर होता हुआ आ जाए, ठीक है. सो दैट्स व्हाट वी आर डूइंग हियर फॉर ऑल ऑफ द डोनेट्स, एंड ऑब्वियसली वी आर जस्ट डूइंग स्कोर प्लस. And this is literally all that we have done. Let me give you guys a quick demo. Where do we collapse this? Okay.
टॉप पे ऑप्शन आएगा, रेड बटन है, क्लोज द स्क्रीन. टॉप बॉटम में टॉप सेंटर में सॉरी रेड बटन होता है, क्लोज स्क्रीन शेयर. आपने वही क्लोज करनी है ना?
I know वो usually आता है, but for some reason अभी नहीं आ रहा. खैर anyway, not an issue. Let me quickly give you a demo of it on the device. अच्छा ये एमुलेटर के ऊपर इतना स्मूथली नहीं चलेगा because obviously माउस के ऊपर वो ठीक से जेस्चर्स को डिटेक्ट नहीं करता है, but if you were to use that on a physical device तो literally बहुत smoothly वो जेस्चर्स के ऊपर आप इंटरेक्शन अपना देख सकते हैं, ठीक है? Okay, so we have this game over here on our emulator, tap to play. We hit play and by default it's in the center, we haven't moved anything, and जैसे वो उस proximity के ऊपर आते हैं तो वो उसको vanish कर देते हैं, ठीक है? Now let's do a vertical gesture, it goes up. Let's do a vertical down gesture, ठीक है? It goes like this. And जिस तरह से वो donuts के साथ proximity में आता रहेगा वो उस हिसाब से उसको खाता जाएगा, ठीक है? So that's literally the crux of the game, and I hope that you liked this talk, and I hope that you gained some insight from this. If you're looking towards creating games by using actual packages जो कि आपको proper physics की libraries का support देते हैं, so that you don't have to write your own custom code for collision detection and stuff like that, then there's this package called Flame, and you can actually use that in order to create your game. Just give me a second, I'm getting the call. And yeah, there's this package called Flame, जो कि आप अपलोड dev पर ढूंढ सकते हैं, and it provides you pre-built code for everything, for handling game loops, for handling physics, gravity, collision, sprites उसमें बहुत अच्छे होते हैं. I did create a game using Flame a while back, but I don't have that on my system anymore. It was kind of like this. If you guys are aware of the old games which we had, which we played growing up, such as the space shooter game, जिसमें होता ये था कि आपके पास enemies की कुछ bullets आ रही होती थी, and you had to shoot them before they reach you, or before they destroy your base, or they reach the bottom of the screen, something like that. तो उसी को mimic करते हुए I created something like this कि Pokeballs आ रही हैं and you have to use Thunderbolt to fight them off, and even अगर एक Pokeball आपके पास नीचे bottom of the screen पर आ जाएगी, then that would be game over, ठीक है? So I built this using Flame because we don't have time and my driver is waiting for me. I won't go into too much technical details, but the package's name is Flame. Okay, you can look it up on Google. लोगों ने काफी Flame के ऊपर I think tutorials भी बनाए हैं. So over there you would actually see कि जितनी भी जो sprites हैं, like उसमें हम लोगों ने fixed containers बनाए हुए थे with fixed widths and fixed heights, and हम लोगों ने उसमें PNG files assets से provide की हुई थी. तो इधर you actually create sprites, ठीक है? तो ये this Pokeball is a sprite, this Thunderbolt is a sprite. ये जो आप animation जो नजर आते हैं जो collision के ऊपर होता है, that is a sprite, ठीक है? So you just feel free to explore that if you actually want to create a fully functional game with actual physics and not your own custom logics for physics handling. So yeah, that's about it. If you have any questions, I'm all open.
Sakina, we might have a lot of questions, you know. We have a lot of questions.
Okay. All right, and then just give me 15 minutes. I'm just getting back home, and then I'll join you guys as soon as I get home. It'll just take 15 minutes.
No.
If
like,
you guys have that.
I mean, you really have to go right now, because we can do it in like 30 minutes. If you have 30 minutes, that'd be more than enough.
Yeah, actually my driver is waiting. So just give me 15 minutes, and
okay.
Because I literally live like 5 minutes away. So
okay,
so I'll just
that's fine. No, it's okay. It's okay. Okay, so we'll be waiting for you, and meanwhile we'll be doing our work, and we'll wait for you. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll just be back, right?
Okay. Okay, guys. So what do you think?
Amazing.
अच्छा, वैसे quick poll, कितने लोगों को चीजें समझ आ रही थी? The app that we went through the code of the neon app, कितने लोगों को कितने % समझ आई है? Quickly in the messages, in the chat. Obviously I am up there in the 80% somewhere, you know. I'm like, I got it, like, you know, and other people. Okay, Aga is 40%. Everybody quickly be honest, and I just wanted to, you know, Saad was 50ish, Sabia 30%. Okay, okay. Shahid by 30%. Farhan is 60%. Okay. Ali Asghar 70%. Okay, good, good. Okay. Without mathematics 80%. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. Okay, Hasham got 90%. That's wonderful. You know, I thought, you know, it was a very neat, neat trick that she did. You know, sort of, you know, how she managed everything. It's she made it look like so simple that you are actually, you know, in set state every 60 seconds you're updating the UI, and meanwhile you are changing the positions of the widgets, like of the donuts and the cat and everything, you know, and the positions are changing, and then she's calling the set state again and again to update the UI. That's what is happening, right? And since I have not made games, but you know, looks like they are not that difficult. I mean, obviously you have to be very smart to figure out how to, if someone shows you how they've done it, obviously you are going to think that it's very easy, you know. So, but you know, but at the same time, I have to really appreciate what she did. What do you guys think?
I
Same
think
here.
how she got over the UI, it made us like pretty easy कि वैसे तो था ही बहुत मुश्किल, it was difficult, but she looked it really easy. For some reason, I just understood it.
जी हसन, आप कुछ कह रहे थे, उसके बाद हम समीरा का भी कमेंट लेना चाहेंगे
Boy,
because
the physics behind this was my main concern, because although it's just a game, लेकिन जैसे उन्होंने वो जो images जो आ रहे हैं, कैसे आ रहे हैं, कौन सी axes पे उसने डाली हुई है, this was an insight. We had no idea how to do this actually.
Yeah, in the beginning, I mean, I thought, you know, and did you see that the code was actually not more than 400-500 lines?
Even my BMI app was like 400 lines, and I was crying.
And did you also notice that most of the concepts she used, we have covered them. She did not apply any advanced state management, just simply set state was enough, you know. And so I'm really keen to hear Samira's feedback, because she is someone who really wants to make games in Flutter.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम. बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग काम था. इस तरह की थोड़ा बहुत मैंने एक ज़माने में इस तरह की छोटी-छोटी गेम्स पे काम किया हुआ है. But the thing, what the questions I have, वो तो अभी तो ये जब दोबारा से आती हैं लास्ट का के the size of the app, कितना, what would be the adequate size of the app, CRUD operations कैसे करने हैं, वो अभी मुझे कुछ नहीं पता. And what should be the game engine के जिससे animations जो हैं वो कुछ तो उन्होंने बताया है to look into this flame thing. I'm not really sure ये क्या चीज़ है.
जो है ना, देखिए जो इनकी गेम थी ना, उसमें तो there is no CRUD operation, there is no game engine. It's very simple. You know, there is nothing complicated in it. But the CRUD, you know, basically it's not only applicable to games. We are going to do CRUD in Firebase. CRUD is actually create, read, update, and delete. You know, like it works in your WhatsApp. You create a message, you update it, you delete it, and you know we'll do CRUD in the next classes as well. So definitely you can ask all these questions, but they will be advanced questions in the sense that the games that she has shown, she did not need all these concepts.
जी, it's very true. And games कुछ के examples मिल भी जाते हैं Flutter के बने हुए, like Snake game के मिल रहे हैं, and in fact Pac-Man के भी मिल रहे हैं. But उस चीज को use करते हुए इन सारे examples and help को use करते हुए making something original, I think वो जरा बड़ा challenge है अभी.
ओरिजिनल बनाना भी चैलेंज है, और उसके बाद उसको उसको successful बनाना, उसके अंदर updates करना, and you know, and I'm really glad. Before I take other people's comments, I know a lot of people want to contribute to this discussion as well, but I'm very happy that you had to hear from her the things that I've been telling you all that time, you know, that Flutter is very powerful. Native developers, they come to Flutter to get rid of all these cost problems, and you know, it's so powerful. And she was talking about that. She was also talking about that, you know, she went to Stack Overflow and Git to find out solutions, and I've been talking about all these things. So Saad, Hashim, Ali Adil, what do you think? Faiz?
I don't have specifically questions regarding her code, but I have some questions in regards to the industry. मैं उससे पूछूं, आपसे पूछूं, I don't know.
उनसे पूछें. I mean, she's coming back in about like 5-10 minutes. But you know, like, okay, so Faiz, आपको समझ आ रही थी कोड की? I don't know आपने comment chat में क्या लिखा है? Let me just go
जी,
back.
अस्सलामुअलैकुम सर. Can you hear my voice?
हाँ जी, आ रही है आवाज.
हाँ जी सर, बिल्कुल. It was a very good session. I just simply like that. वैसे I'm more interested towards other apps development, but still it was very informative.
जी, बिल्कुल. I had a quick look at the apps she was mentioning, and also, you know, like the work she's been doing. उनकी जो मैंने app देखी है, coffee वगैरह. It's very simple app. I mean, anyone can make that in our project, something like that. You know, the UI is good, and this is simply keeping a track of the loyalty program. The more coffees you buy, the more your points are. Sort of, you know, like your credit card, how that works. You know, sort of, it's a simple one thing that it does, but it does that beautifully. You know, UI is wonderful, and you know, so and I'm glad she's seeing some success in her work as well. She talked about carpooling, and I thought, you know, she will talk about, you know, some of the carpooling ideas that we've been talking about, but she was, I think, talking about airlift and swivel, not actually the cars, but more like buses, right? Or did I get it wrong? Saad, did you pick that up?
No, sir, you're right. You just talk about the airlift and other apps.
Okay, Saad is saying she doesn't have a mic today, so that's okay. He can type in the chat. But I'm really glad. You know, this is. I found the talk very, very interesting and very, very helpful, and sort of, you know, and that was probably the right kind of guest talk where you get a lot of relevant information about Flutter and apps and games and the approaches, and the fact that she just graduated in 2019 and she's done so much work and she's been publishing so many apps so quickly. It's truly inspirational, you know, and everybody can find inspiration in that. Just, you know, like, since we have some time, we can talk about what are we going to do next. आप लोगों के जो projects हैं उसमें मुझे MVPs काफी को मिल गए. There are some changes in the plan in the groups. I'm just quickly going to share that with you. मैंने सबके MVPs देख लिए हैं. समीरा का MVP अभी थोड़ी देर पहले आया, उसको मैंने नहीं देखा अभी. There is some change in plan. Let me just share my screen, and so, you know, like some changes. Saad is still working on MVP. He will. I don't have a clarity. Aruj has started working on her app, and she's already made a couple of screens. She's already made something. You know, she shared it with me earlier today, and I don't know if she's available right now, but she's making good progress. Ali Asghar and all these people, Ali Asghar and Farhan, they requested that they want to be on the same group. So I moved Farhan from Saad's group to with Ali Asghar. And these guys are going to still working on the travel app. Okay. Samira has submitted an MVP. I did not have an opportunity to look at it. I will look into it later today or tomorrow. And Bismi Rabbi, she was. So Hashim, are you? Which group are you working with?
I'm with Bismi Rabbi.
Okay, so have you guys made contact and sort of discussed? Sorry.
Today after class.
Okay. So let me just put you here. Okay. So Shahid bhai ka mujhe MVP aa gaya hai. Samia sent that and okay. So our guest is back. G. इसको मैं close करता हूँ and let me put her in the center. Okay. So Sakina, that was really quick. So you live close to your office? Sorry, is she here? Yeah, she's here. Sakina, can you hear us?
Hi, can you hear me?
Gigi, we can hear you now.
I'm really sorry for the delay. I'm really sorry. So yeah.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. So we have a lot of questions. So Samira, aapse start karte hain, then Hashim, and then other people can write their comments, their questions in the chat as well. Meanwhile, okay. So Samira, aapse shuru karte hain.
Okay, Assalamualaikum Sakina. It was very nice to hear you talk about games in Flutter, and हमने final जो project है वो मेरा and Misbah हैं उनका we've decided to do a serious game. So you must be knowing कि serious game का एक sort of goal होता है, educative goal होता है. So उसका भी डालना है अंदर element. So have you ever worked on such a thing before? And थोड़ा सा आप उसको कोई experience if you have worked on such a thing before, yeah, you have any comments on that? तो वो दे सकती हैं, because we have अभी तो कोई idea नहीं है कि UI हमने कैसे बनानी है, and how long will it take, and what sort of minimal functionality would you suggest that we have? So our idea is basically to develop a game, sort of a Pac-Man and spelling combined game, word spelling memory game, sort of a thing. So I was thinking कि Pac-Man की maze लेके and उसके अंदर while the student or the user is kind of trying to spell out the word, तो उतनी देर में कुछ Pac-Man की moves हो जाएं, and if the user is able to spell it correctly तो कोई reward मिले, और अगर incorrect spellings हो तो or chances, attempts, and lives, and that all those things incorporate करी जाए.
ठीक है. अच्छा, Samira, I'm really glad that you found this talk insightful. So for the kind of game that you've mentioned, for your just by the way, is this for the project for this course? Yeah, this game that you just
for this course. For this course.
Just for this course, okay, ठीक है. So for this, I wouldn't recommend that आप इतना advanced जाएं, because अभी the kind of game that you're talking about, it's quite advanced for the first game that you will be creating in Flutter. ठीक है? So you either go for a simple Pac-Man game, or you either go for a simple word-based game like Hangman game, जिसमें बहुत ही कोई interactive approach हो, ठीक है? Because if you'll be combining the two of them, तो literally like speaking as a student that I once was, I'm giving you this advice कि अभी इस stage पर don't do something too advanced. आगे जाके you'll get stuck. So yeah. So what I would recommend is either go for either of the approaches. So yeah, whichever approach you choose, it's entirely up to you. Okay, for instance, obviously that which game do you even want to develop? Do you want to develop Pac-Man, or do you want to develop a word-based game? Okay, developing a word-based game would be relatively simpler, because in that sense you will be literally just working with those Flutter concepts that you've already learned throughout the course, and those Flutter concepts जो कि आप with practice as a beginner या at an intermediate level जो आप सीख रही होती हैं, ठीक है? तो वर्ड बेस के ऊपर मैं आपको एज सच नहीं बताऊंगी कि यूआई इस तरह से होना चाहिए, उस तरह से होना चाहिए. जिस तरह से अभी मैंने जो गेम आपको दिखाई, वो दिखने में इट लुक्स अ बिट कॉम्प्लिकेटेड, बट लिटरली व्हेन यू सॉ द कोड तो यू नोटिस्ड कि कुछ आउट ऑफ द बॉक्स नहीं किया होता, स्टैक से पूरा गेम हो रहा था, ठीक है? स्टैक एंड एनिमेटेड containers were the essence of it. ठीक है? So similarly, if you're going for a word-based game like Hangman or anything, तो इसको भी आप अपने ओन जो भी आपके जिन विजेट्स की आपको नॉलेज है या जिन स्टेट मैनेजमेंट टेक्निक्स की आपको नॉलेज है, you can use those in order to create the game. If you're going for something more interactive and more graphic like Pac-Man, or like the game that I just showed you, or even that I showed you, or even Flappy Bird, तो इसके लिए I would recommend you a channel. It's called Mitch Coco. That's a channel on YouTube that I follow. वो कहता ही यही है कि डिफरेंट वो गेम्स के ऊपर ना वो खुद ही अपना कस्टम कोड लिखता है, एंड उसके एक डेढ़ घंटे के उसके ना पूरे वीडियोस होते हैं जिसमें हर सेक्शन को उसने ब्रेक डाउन किया हुआ है. लाइक ओके, दिस इज नाउ आई एम सेटिंग अप द यूआई, नाउ इन दिस आई एम क्रिएटिंग द गेम लॉजिक. अगर कहीं पर कोई मैथ की इन्वॉल्वमेंट है तो उसकी इक्वेशंस को बता रहे होते हैं कि इसको इस तरह से करें, ठीक है? तो फॉर दैट
टेल मी दिस YouTube channel name.
Yeah, I'm actually just typing it in the chat. It's called Mitch. ठीक है? तो definitely check him out. उसने already Pac-Man के ऊपर एक वीडियो बनाई हुई है. So if you just look at his video, you'll be able to get some insight कि अच्छा उसने जो इसको इस तरह से बनाया, ये उसकी approach थी. अगर उसकी approach थी तो what approach can I follow? ठीक है? So you'll be able to relate to that, because ये वाली जो मैंने cat की game बनाई थी ना, वो उसकी एक game थी Flappy Bird के ऊपर उसने एक वीडियो बनाई थी, ठीक है? तो उससे I gained this insight on अच्छा ये वाला काम हम stack से कर सकते हैं और animated container से कर सकते हैं. बाकी जो मैथ की लॉजिक थी, that was all mine. ठीक है? तो you will be able to relate to his video, so definitely take a look at his channel.
Great, thank you. And what about other types of apps like ये जो e-commerce apps होती हैं? How much resources of the mobiles do they take? And what about the file size of this an Android app and an iOS app? थोड़ा सा उसको बताओगे?
ठीक है. अच्छा, in terms of resources, अच्छा, performance is literally very good. I will give you an example of Coffee वगैरह की application which we created. उसमें functionality is all main जो central उसका focus है, that's loyalty management. ठीक है? So you earn points, you can spend points, you have your own wallet, points expire and all that stuff. But उसके अलावा we also have other features and functionalities such as phone verification and locating the nearby branch. ठीक है? तो there are a couple of other features as well. This application, it was Yeah, okay. I just heard somebody play that audio. Right. Anyway, so if you were to look at Google Play Store, तो इस पे already किसी ने review डाला है that the best thing about this application is that it's around 9 MB in size on Android. ठीक है. तो इससे यू नो कि फ्लटर की एप्लीकेशन iOS का इतना मुझे नहीं पता बिकॉज I am not from the native iOS background, तो I don't know कि अगर native iOS में applications create होती हैं तो उनका ideal size कितना होता है. तो iOS के ऊपर I wouldn't be able to say much, but Android के ऊपर it's a huge difference. ठीक है. There are two things. You can either create an APK or you can either create an app bundle. ठीक है. और ये आप create तब करते हो जब आप अपने Play Store के ऊपर deploy करने जा रहे हो. तो सही है. So a fat APK essentially creates code for all of the architectures of the app. ठीक है. हमारे पास different ARM के architectures होते हैं Android के ऊपर. तो वो हर उसके जो है हर बाइनरी के हिसाब से सॉरी हर आर्किटेक्चर के हिसाब से वो इसका कोड कंपाइल एक साथ कर लेता है. दैट्स व्हाई इट्स कॉल्ड अ फैट एपीके. ठीक है. तो इसका साइज भी बड़ा होता है. इस वाले का आई थिंक इट वाज अराउंड 25 MB इन अ फैट एपीके इफ आई रिमेंबर करेक्टली. ठीक है. The other thing is ऐप बंडल. ऐप बंडल क्या होता है कि आप एक जेनेरिक ऐप बंडल क्रिएट करते हो जो कि आप प्ले स्टोर पर डाल देते हो. ऐप बंडल को ही अपलोड करते हो. देन व्हेन यू आर डाउनलोडिंग तो वो डाउनलोड के बाद प्ले स्टोर चेक करते हैं कि जिस डिवाइस से डाउनलोड होने जा रहे हैं वो डिवाइस किस आर्किटेक्चर को फॉलो करते हैं. फिर वो उसी आर्किटेक्चर की बाइनरी देयर एंड देन उसको बना के लाइक ऐप बंडल से बनाकर उसको आपको वो सिर्फ उस आर्किटेक्चर का जो ऐप जो एक्चुअली डाउनलोड होती है वो उस स्पेसिफिक आर्किटेक्चर की होती है. सो व्हेन यू आर डाउनलोडिंग from Play Store जहाँ पर ऐप बंडल अपलोड हुई है as opposed to a fat APK, तो उसमें सबके सब एक साथ डाउनलोड नहीं हो रहे होते हैं. आपके फोन के आर्किटेक्चर के हिसाब से एप्लीकेशन डाउनलोड हो रही होती है. ठीक है. तो द शॉर्ट आंसर इज दिस के फ्लटर एंड्रॉइड इट्स ऑप्टिमल. साइज इसका बहुत ऑप्टिमल होता है. ठीक है. And in terms of performance, it's also very quite performant. So yep, there's your answer.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, before I want to say a few things. That was me who played that your app. I downloaded that, and it has some audio that was playing. So in iOS it is 61 MB, and did you? I thought you said 25 MB, or am I like? Are you aware that on iOS it is 61 MB?
iOS पर it's bigger in size. That's what I said. क्योंकि iOS पर generally भी upload size I think bigger होता है, but Android के ऊपर it was Android के ऊपर it was less in size.
I mean, since I've done development in native iOS, I can tell you I use the app. It feels as fast as iOS as a native app. It's very fast. Even it's faster than the native app. So its performance is very good, and I've seen the app. It's a wonderful work. I have just a few questions about your, that cat game that you showed. That's an amazing game, and by the way, very neat concept and neat programming, and you've done it in a few hundred lines of code, and I'm really impressed. And we were talking about it when you were driving to your home. So one question that I want to ask is that if I play that game for an hour, talk about the battery performance and how much it will deteriorate my battery, and talk a little about that. And did you compare it with iOS performance? And I really am concerned about if I play such a game for an hour on my mobile, what will it do to my battery and other resources?
Okay, so all right. So the short answer would be that if you continue playing this game for over an hour, तो उसका आपकी बैटरी के ऊपर performance it would be approximately equivalent to if you're playing any other lightweight game on your mobile, in the sense कि वो आपकी बैटरी को इतना बहुत ही fast deteriorate नहीं करेगी, because even when we saw the code, there's literally nothing that we're doing. एक ही loop के अंदर चल रहा है and सिर्फ timer चल रहा है, and it's not even that graphic intensive. ठीक है. तो two things. First things first, already when you provide Flutter if you provide the Flutter framework with anything graphic related, so even if it's very high in, even if it's a very graphic intensive, what it would do is that कि Flutter सारी चीजों को tone down कर देता है because it wants to make everything as performant as possible. सही है? So the engine that Flutter uses in order to render everything on the canvas is Kia. So what it does is, by default आपके पास बहुत ही minimal janks आ रहे होते हैं if you've coded everything correctly on your application. अगर आपने कोई भंड नहीं मारा हो quote unquote, ठीक है, तो इन चीजों में वो ऑलरेडी काफी चीजों को केटर कर रहा होता है, ठीक है. काफी चीजें यू एज अ प्रोग्रामर हैव टू केटर. फॉर इंस्टेंस अगर हम लोग गेम की भी बात नहीं करें, अगर हम लोग कोई नॉर्मल एप्लीकेशन की बात करें, ठीक है, जहाँ पर लेट्स सपोज कोई एपीआई कॉल है जो कि लेट्स सपोज हर की स्ट्रोक के ऊपर हिट हो रही है, ठीक है. Now you as a developer, it's your responsibility that you optimize your code and you write your code as optimal as possible to throttle such things कि even अगर जहाँ पर possibility है कि वो आपको क्या कहते हैं आपकी performance को deteriorate करेगी या आपके phone को heat up कर देगी या बहुत application में lags लेकर आएगी, which in other words is termed as janks. Flutter की जो performance की terminology है, ठीक है. तो you have to tackle that by optimizing your code in a way जहाँ पर कहीं पर अगर throttling की जरूरत है तो आप उसको throttle करो, ठीक है. Now coming back to the game, I obviously did not play it for 1 hour just for testing purposes, but obviously for the duration of, let's say, 15 minutes that I played while I was continuously testing my application. So the phone that I have, the physical phone that I have, it's a 2017 का phone है, ठीक है, and I haven't changed my phone since then. तो बैटरी थोड़ी सी वीक हो गई है, but even on that, like if I were to continuously watch YouTube for 1 hour, तो मेरी बैटरी जितनी तेजी से गिरेगी उतनी तेजी से बिल्कुल भी इस गेम से नहीं गिरेगी. It was hardly like शायद 1% गिरी होगी in like 25 minutes या 30 minutes, जिसके अंदर मैंने उसको टेस्टिंग किया है and उसको मैंने प्ले किया, ठीक है. This is I am speaking on native Android, sorry, on my Android phone, ठीक है. Similar on iOS के ऊपर भी उसने इतना कोई हीट अप नहीं किया था and बैटरी भी इतनी ज़्यादा कंज्यूम नहीं हुई थी. Like I have an iPhone that's even older than the Android phone, and उसके ऊपर I think the battery diminished by 2% in 30 minutes. सही है. तो इससे we can kind of get an idea कि हमारी कौन सी practices कहाँ पर influence करती हैं, because by default, as we have already established earlier, Flutter is performant by default, but obviously you have to make it performant yourself as well as a developer कि कहीं अगर आपने कोई ऐसी coding practice करी है. Yeah, so that's
अभी मुजम्मिल का एक क्वेश्चन है, उसके बाद हाशिम एंड नईमा कैन गो. पहले मुजम्मिल प्लीज.
It was really nice to listen all of the topics you just discussed, and I wanted to ask how long it took to learn Flutter, and can you tell what was the stages like beginner to intermediate, the intermediate to advanced, how much duration does it took? And what did you do? How did you follow the routine courses? How per week? How much time were you giving it all?
Okay. So if I were to speak about my learning curve in Flutter, it took about 1 month just to gain a basic hands-on के how the Flutter framework works, ठीक है. So I think within 1 month I was able to pick up things in Flutter. Baki, obviously right after I was done learning Flutter, we had taken on a project जिसको हमने Flutter के ऊपर किया था. It was a networking and conferencing application in Flutter. तो काफ़ी चीज़ें उस application की development के दौरान मैंने चीज़ें सीखी. Like even though for instance during the course while I was learning Flutter, तो set state is one of the basic things that you learn. सही है. तो even though set state को उस वक्त सीख लिया था, but सेट स्टेट की वजह से कहाँ पर प्रॉब्लम्स आती हैं या कहाँ पर वो एज इंटेंडेड बिहेव नहीं करता, कुछ चीज़ें इससे रिलेटेड आई ऑब्वियसली सॉ व्हाइल आई वाज डेवलपिंग एन एप्लीकेशन फॉर वन ऑफ आवर क्लाइंट्स, ठीक है. बट इफ like speaking for you guys, if you have a good background in programming, ठीक है, if your object oriented, if your OOP concepts are clear, if your data structure concepts are clear, if you know कि Java पर किस तरह से होती है, then it wouldn't take you that long to understand Flutter. मतलब I think 1 to 2 months should be sufficient अगर आप रोजाना at least 3 to 4 hours dedicate करें, ठीक है. Yeah, I think that should be sufficient to just get a basic hands-on on Flutter, ठीक है. उसके अलावा the roadmap that I usually advise people learning Flutter is this, that सबसे पहले आप उसका UI सीखें कि UI Flutter में किस तरह से बनता है. उसमें आपको widgets की सारी knowledge हो रही होगी कि for instance list view के बनाने के 3-4 डिफरेंट तरीके हैं, ठीक है. लिस्ट व्यू डॉट बिल्डर है, लिस्ट व्यू डॉट सेपरेटेड है, लिस्ट व्यू नॉर्मल लिस्ट व्यू है, ठीक है. देन सिमिलरली ग्रिड व्यू के अपने अपने तरीके हैं, फिर ऐप बार के अपने अपने तरीके हैं, ठीक है. यू गेट अ नॉलेज ऑफ डिफरेंट विजेट्स दैट आर देयर इन फ्लटर, ठीक है. सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल जस्ट फोकस ऑन द प्लेन वैनिला यूआई इन फ्लटर, सही है. उसके बाद व्हाट यू कैन फोकस ऑन is actually set state, ठीक है. उसके बाद आप set state को लेकर आए कि अच्छा ठीक है, अगर यूजर इंटरेक्शन आ रही है, जेस्चर्स अगर आ रहे हैं, जिस स्टेट आपकी चेंज हो रही है, तो फिर set state के थ्रू आप किस तरह से अपनी ऐप में उसको रिफ्लेक्ट करा सकते हैं, ठीक है. After that, once you're confident enough with UI and with basic sets, at this point, I'm not even advising you guys to learn about provider, ठीक है. वो आता है बाद में, like once you're done working with APIs and database services and all that stuff. So yeah, once you're confident enough with the UI side of things, then just work with simple REST API, ठीक है. simple HTTP की request के साथ आप लोग work करें, कोई भी public API उठा लें या अपनी कोई postman पर बना के कर लें, ठीक है. Just work with simple REST APIs and see कि किस तरह से मैं बना सकती हूँ या बना सकता हूँ request, किस तरह से मेरा उस हिसाब से UI update होगा and so on and so forth, ठीक है. Once you're done with that, then work with Firebase, ठीक है, because Firebase provides you this whole suite of packages, authentication, database, storage, and so on and so forth, ठीक है. तो उसके बाद you look into Firebase, सही है. उसके बाद then you can look into any specific choice of your state management practices like block हो गया, provider हो गया, Riverport हो गया, multiple state management techniques that we have. It's entirely up to you and it's entirely up to the use case that you're trying to model कि इस use case में कौन सा state management technique optimal रहेगी, ठीक है. तो just follow this process. And एक और चीज़ that I would really advise you guys कि if you want to strengthen your UI, तो या तो आप existing जो कि आप रोज़मर्रा की जो applications आप लोग use करते हैं, for instance Gmail की app हो गई या WhatsApp की application हो गई, ठीक है, इनके UI उठाएं और उनको Flutter में कोड करें. Once you're done with that and you want to challenge your step even one step further, तो फिर go for Dribble या go for Pinterest, वहाँ से just pick up any concepts, any UI concepts and try to model them using Flutter widgets, ठीक है. So if you follow this roadmap, I think it would be a pretty solid plan for you to learn Flutter, and yeah, that's how you basically become good at it.
Right.
Thank you for elaborating the roadmap. And like Sir Amir actually instructed us, he gave us the mockups, like the UI, and he actually told us to implement that. That was actually the first step, and it looked very easy, but when we were implemented, it was like difficult. So we learned a lot through that, and in the end, we developed the UI. So I wanted to ask one thing in the contrast of the previous question I just asked. Okay, when you hire people in the company, so what did you expect a candidate to be? So what level do you see? What do you see in them? as a
And a
Flutter
follow-up
developer.
and a related question: would you be interested to hire one of the students from the course just after 3 months experience? Do you hire people like that as well?
Okay. So first, I would like to answer Muzammel's question. So when we're actually when we're interviewing candidates for hiring as a Flutter developer, so the kind of questions that we usually ask them are obviously to test their knowledge of Flutter and to test their knowledge of Firebase or any of the other Google services that they've used, because we primarily work with Google technologies. So yeah, but obviously मतलब जितना technical questions जो कि usually होते हैं जो कि हमें पूछने होते हैं वो तो हम लोग usually पूछते हैं. But strictly speaking of Flutter, what we usually expect the candidates to know is that there are primarily two main types of widgets in Flutter, which are stateless and stateful. Stateless की life cycle क्या होती है, stateful की life cycle क्या होती है. Like not by life cycle, I don't exactly expect the candidate to know each and every function के वो किस point पर जाकर call होते हैं, but at least have a basic idea कि stateful widgets किस तरह से behave करते हैं, stateless किस तरह से behave करते हैं. I expect the candidates to know the difference between futures and streams. I expect them to know the difference between asyncs, awaits, and then. ठीक है कि अगर parallel में कोई task चलाना है तो क्या use करना चाहिए. If the second task is dependent on the first task तो क्या use करना चाहिए. ठीक है, तो इधर kind of programming से related यहाँ पर obviously questions आ जाते हैं. I expect them to know some knowledge of widgets के अगर I usually show them some screens and I ask them to identify certain widgets कि अगर आपको ये वाली चीज़ Flutter में करनी होगी तो किस तरह से आप अपनी स्क्रीन को स्ट्रक्चर करेंगे, कहाँ पर कौन सा विजेट आ रहा होगा, एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ. ठीक है, अगर किसी विजेट को स्टाइल करना है, फॉर इंस्टेंस अगर मेरे पास एक टेक्स्ट फील्ड है and I want the text field to be rounded or I want it to have a gray color, तो मैं उसको किस में रैप कर सकती हूँ या मैं कौन से उसके attributes change कर सकती हूँ so that I can get that look. ठीक है, तो इस टाइप के कुछ widget level questions होते हैं, UI level questions होते हैं. ठीक है, फिर उसके बाद I expect them to know at least one state management technique, whether it's providers, whether it's block, whether it's RxJS. ठीक है, because that really helps when you're developing large scale applications, because with larger applications your code gets really complicated, the state management gets really complicated. आप हर दफा shared preference में चीजें नहीं store करा सकते. ठीक है, तो इस टाइप के कुछ questions हैं which from the point of view of Flutter that I expect the candidates to know. ठीक है, and coming to Saramar's question, usually because our office is based in Karachi, so the team that we currently have, there are people who are here, so we're actually working together in a physical environment. Okay? But obviously it was a nice, it was something nice that you put on the table, which is worth considering. So I'll definitely look into it, and I'll also have a talk with my partners if we could arrange for some remote internship or remote working. Then I'll discuss that with my partners, and I'll definitely let you know, and we'll see what we can do about it.
Okay, thank you, Hashim. Now you can ask your question, and then Naima can go.
Hey, Sakina. My name is Hashim. Acha, since you've been in the market for quite some time, I would say, my question to you is, which of the two would you say have a greater market appeal, mobile apps or web apps? And the reason why I asked this question is because for a newbie like me who's trying to penetrate in the market, should my focus be on web apps or mobile apps? Because I feel that mobile apps are very saturated. And what is your take on this?
Okay. I think it's a pretty good question. And the thing is that it's quite debatable. Okay? Some people would say that web applications are the future. Some would say that mobile applications are the future. So it's really all a matter of debate. Okay? Because even if we talk web applications, so we have progressive web apps. Okay? apps के अगर for instance I think Twitter has a PWA कि अगर आप Twitter की वेबसाइट को अपने मोबाइल पर खोलेंगे तो वो आपको एक एप्लीकेशन डाउनलोड करने का ऑप्शन देगा, ठीक है. So that's a PWA. Because my domain is not web, I wouldn't be able to talk much on that, on how those things work, but based on my experience that I have in the market, web holds importance apni jagah and mobile application holds its importance apni jagah, theek hai? Because we have clients coming in for web applications as well, and we have clients coming in for mobile applications as well, and much of our clientele is located internationally, theek hai? So we're talking about Australia, Canada, US, UK and places like these, theek hai? तो लिटरली दोनों की अपनी अपनी जगह इम्पोर्टेंस है. इट्स नॉट अ ब्लैक एंड वाइट आंसर के विच विल बी देयर इन द फ्यूचर. अगर हम लोग कुछ साल पहले की बात करें तो there was no such thing called AR or VR, ठीक है. There was AI का इतना कोई बहुत इतना ज़्यादा कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं था. People were still working on it, ठीक है. So similarly, people are still working on mobile technologies. They're still working on making the mobile development frameworks as seamless or as optimal or as performant as possible, because literally जब आप development पर आते हैं ना तो आपके use case के ऊपर भी depend करता है कि अगर आपका ये use case है तो यहाँ पर which would be better, would a web application be better, would a mobile application be better, ठीक है. तो it literally all boils down towards what your use case is, who your intended audience is, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that is literally the only answer that I can give you, because even if we're talking 5 years from now or 10 years from now, matlab, if we just look at desktop applications, ठीक है, अब desktop applications बहुत कम हो गई हैं. मतलब किन किन चीज़ों की desktop applications होती हैं. Microsoft का पूरा suite तो चलो ठीक है डेस्कटॉप पर है, बट अब उसको पूरा का पूरा क्लाउड पर रिप्लेस कर दिया गूगल के स्वीट में. आपके पास गूगल स्प्रेडशीट्स हैं, आपके पास गूगल डॉक्स हैं, स्लाइड्स हैं, सब कुछ आपके पास क्लाउड के ऊपर मौजूद है. तो डेस्कटॉप तो काइंड ऑफ ऑब्सोलेट हो गया है, बट पीपल स्टिल वर्क ऑन डेस्कटॉप एप्लीकेशंस. जैसे अगर हम लोग एंटीवायरस वगैरह की बात करें, ठीक है, तो उनके कोई क्लाउड बेस्ड कोई ब्राउजर में कोई एप्लीकेशन नहीं रन हो रही होती है, वो आपके सिस्टम के ऊपर डेस्कटॉप के ऊपर रन हो रही होती है, ठीक है. तो इसी तरह से हर प्लेटफॉर्म की अपनी एक नीड है, हर प्लेटफॉर्म की अपनी एक नीश है. इट ऑल डिपेंड्स ऑन व्हाट your intended purposes of the application. It all depends on what your use case is, what your target audience is, how they would be interacting with your application, and so on and so forth. So kind of like the factors that influence the importance of a specific platform that you could say. So yeah.
Sakina, if I may
one more question.
Okay, yeah, Ashif, you go first, then I can add my bit. Hashim, आप पूछे चले. अगर if you want, I can, I wanted to add a few things here. Since I think mobile is a different thing. Mobile is always in your pocket. If you want to reach your user 24/7 anytime you want, and especially the notification thing is very powerful. You cannot have notification feature is not powerful on the web. And secondly, for the services like Kareem and Food Panda and all these interactive services, you need to reach your customers on mobile. These services cannot be offered on web. So I think in that sense, I think the future is mobile, and I'm more excited about mobile. And in my opinion, Sakina was a little more sort of balanced in her answer. But in my opinion, web is the past, and the future is mobile. That's my opinion.
Either I would like to add just one more thing. Just adding to what Sir said right now. There are certain functionalities which are much easier to develop and cater to when you're doing that on mobile. For instance, अभी जब इन्होंने करीम का जिक्र किया या फूड पांडा का जिक्र किया, ठीक है, तो applications like करीम, especially अगर हम लोग राइडर की बात करें, तो काफ़ी चीज़ें वो बैकग्राउंड में चल रही होती हैं, ठीक है. सो दे हैव बैकग्राउंड रनिंग प्रोसेसेस विच यू कैन कंट्रोल ऑन मोबाइल एप्लीकेशंस, ठीक है. बट वेब एप्लीकेशंस का कोई अपना कोई नेटिव कोई स्कोप नहीं होता है, ठीक है. आपने टैब बंद कर दिया, दैट्स इट, ठीक है. टैब बंद हो गया तो फिर आप किस तरह से इसके साथ इंटरेक्ट करोगे, ठीक है. आपका तो सेशन क्लोज हो गया, सही है. तो अगर हम लोग बैकग्राउंड सर्विसेज की स्पेसिफिकली बात करें, सो दिस इज वन फीचर दैट आई हैव प्रीवियसली वर्कड with in some of the applications in the past and I'm currently working on right now. तो जब हम लोग इस टाइप के फीचर्स के ऊपर भी बात करते हैं ना, तो इन टाइप के फीचर्स जो है या वेब एप्लीकेशंस में नहीं कैटर कर सकते, ठीक है. एंड इवन एज फार एज आई नो PWA हैज लिमिटेड सपोर्ट, ठीक है. तो अगर आप बहुत ही कोई नेटिव लेवल पर जाकर अगर आपको कोई फीचर चाहिए, बैकग्राउंड सर्विसेज फॉर इंस्टेंस या परसिस्टेंट नोटिफिकेशंस और एनीथिंग, सही है. तो फॉर दैट यू हैव टू cater to you will be only be able to cater to that in mobile applications rather than web applications. तो यहाँ पे ये भी आता है कि किस टाइप के फीचर्स चाहिए, तो वेब पर डिफरेंट सपोर्टेड होता है, मोबाइल पर डिफरेंट सपोर्टेड होता है. सो या
राइट, थैंक यू. आई थिंक बिल्कुल सही कहा आप दोनों ने कि यूज केस पे डिपेंड करता है. The second question in regards to mobile app development, especially games में, आपने एक हमें छोटा सा हिंट दिया कि फ्लेम इज अ गुड मार्केट प्लेस जहाँ से आप डिफरेंट स्प्राइट्स वगैरह डाउनलोड कर सकते हो. माय क्वेश्चन टू यू इज कि गेम्स लाइक चेस, पोकर जो कि इतनी सालों से चलती आ रही हैं, अगर मैं उसका एल्गोरिदम स्क्रैच से लिखने बैठूं तो इट विल टेक मी फॉरएवर जस्ट टू राइट द एल्गो, और उसके आगे ऊपर फिर आएगा UI and UX and all those things. The question to you is there a platform where you can buy these algos and then just work on the UI and UX and publish that game?
I don't think so. Matlab, by algorithms, could you reiterate your question?
What I mean by algorithms is कि for example chess की game मैं बनाना चाह रहा हूँ. अब for every chess piece उसका क्या response hoga in regards to the move I make. If I start writing that logic, it's going to take forever and probably full of bugs. So my question is,
right.
is there a platform? Yeah.
No. अगर आपको बना बनाया कुछ चाहिए तो that's obviously you Google that stuff, and if you come across that on Stack Overflow or GitHub, so it's just copy pasting code from there. But other than that, no, I don't think there is any platform available जहाँ पर बने बनाए आपको set of algorithms मिल जाए that you just consume and you just work on UI अलग से, because I think if that were possible तो गेम डेवलपर्स की इतनी नीड नहीं होती, सिर्फ वो लोग UI के ऊपर काम कर रहे होते हैं. बट लॉजिक इज लाइक अ होल डिफरेंट यूनिवर्स, सही है. तो it honestly I mean, as a programmer, I think it's our responsibility to come up with our own logics, because I don't think कि कोई ऐसा platform होता है जहाँ पर बने बनाए set of algorithms are available.
Okay, thank you. I'll look for one, or agar mila I'll share it.
All right.
I think that's a good opportunity for anyone, because I think a market for algorithm is missing. There's a market for icons, there's market for images, there's market for ready-made codes and UI. I think the market for UI is not, market for algorithms is not much developed. And I would be interested in such a market, because where I can, sell or buy the complicated algorithms. There could be a market. So Hashim is probably thinking in the right direction, because that will be the future as well, because there will be market for everything and people can buy those things and mix and match and make an app. It's already happening.
Most probably. Yeah, we have already come to that age where you मतलब अब तो ऐसी services भी आ गई हैं where no code services, okay? So if you're developing an application, there are many services that are already there in the market which are considered no code, so you don't even need to code in order to make applications using those services. I haven't really delved much into it, but obviously if we have reached then possibly might be in the future, we could also have some services or some platforms where they have some set of algorithms that we can use in order to create a market-ready application. So who knows?
And in my opinion, I think writing a good algorithm is probably the hardest thing in tech. I mean, if you can make a pyramid of tech skills that you need to write, I think writing sophisticated algorithms is probably one of the hardest thing. And I would think people like that would be like in the hundreds, not even in thousands in Pakistan, who can write really good algorithms for games like poker. And, even my stock market app, we need to write complicated algorithms, and we really struggle for months to figure out the right solution. So I think that is part of the reason that, you will really need really smart mathematical minds and geniuses to write those complicated algorithms. So that was my 2 cents, and I think we can move to the next question. I believe Naima had a question, and then others can also ask the questions.
Hello, ma'am. First of all, I would like to appreciate you. You have accomplished so much in such a less time. And my question to you is that, as a female entrepreneur, what do you think what has been the most challenging thing for you so far? And how did you handle that?
All right. Thank you, Naima. I'm really moved by your kind words. So as a female entrepreneur, what has been something that's been most challenging? I don't think that I faced much of the challenge as a female entrepreneur myself, because Alhamdulillah, I have been blessed with the best partners ever. So you would be quite surprised to see that in my company, being led by a female CEO, my company actually has all male people in it. So all of my partners are men, all of my teammates are men. It's just that because we haven't yet had any like-minded, capable female as yet. Otherwise, we would obviously love to have them in our team. But other than that, you would be surprised to see that all of the people in our company here in ReacTree, they're men, all right? But because usually the general perception is that when there's a woman, people don't usually listen to them, or they don't take them seriously. At least that's a perception that people often have. But in my case, alhamdulillah, that has not been the issue. It's actually been quite of a benefit, because as a female entrepreneur, people have actually appreciated this female presence. People usually tend to pay more attention, if not the same, as my male partner. They tend to take my work quite seriously. I mean, what I have experienced is this, that if you can just establish your authority by showing your work, that your work is credible, that your work is credible, that your word holds value, in the sense that if you're committing something, then you're abiding by it. If you're saying that I will be here by 7 o'clock, then you have to be there by 7 o'clock. All right. So these are the tiniest bit of things that really make a huge impression. So yeah, because all of these things are ingrained in me, it's part of my daily practices. Like even right now, when I said that I will be there within 15 minutes, I was actually there within 15 minutes, right? So with your work, with your ongoing work, with your practices, with your habits, what you preach, do you practice? With all of these things, if you have established your authority and your genuinity, then people actually appreciate that. They don't say that, oh, so it's a female-led organization. Maybe it's weak in some way, or some other thing. I don't know. People actually hold that organization in high regard, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman. You just have to show that irrespective of your gender, can you do that work which you have promised and you have committed to? If you can, then that's great. So speaking from a challenge point of view, I don't think I faced any challenge, but speaking from a very general point of view, like not as a female entrepreneur, but just as a general entrepreneur, obviously the first struggle was team building. So naturally, no company can stand without a team. So yeah. So that was obviously one of the first things. But we initially started off as the co-founders, all of us, the co-founders, the partners. We were working on everything by ourselves, and then eventually we started hiring team, and then we started acquiring office space, and then we started to get more clients, more projects. So it's been a long process. All right. So yeah, I think the only challenge was team building, and this is something that every entrepreneur will face and keeps on facing even after they have established a big company, because in order to sustain your company, you need good people, good reliable people that you can rely on, that you can work with, that are fun to work with. So yeah, it's all about that. So yeah, and I'm really glad I have been blessed with the best partners, and I have been blessed with the best team ever. So if you're hearing that, shout out to you guys.
If I may add one more thing here, I think, when I look at if you really think about things, I mean, even a household cannot survive without women, and men and women, they have to be there everywhere, even in companies, even in the public life. Without participation of everyone in the economy, you cannot succeed. Simply, you cannot succeed. We need our 50% of our population to come in technology, in other jobs, and now even they have that flexibility that they can work from home with the revolution in technology and those change in those perceptions and all that, And I think Pakistan cannot succeed and cannot become economically richer without participation of women. And in my own company, we have half of our board of directors is women, and the perspective that they bring is unmatchable. Men, they sort of historically have been thinking the same way, and that's where sort of women bring a lot of different perspective and different sort of palette to the whole discussion. They make things a lot more humane, a lot more interesting, and a lot more design friendly, in my opinion. And without that, I think any board of directors, any company management, any classroom, or any space cannot be complete without the participation of women, in my opinion. So we can go.
No, you're absolutely right about that. You're completely right about that, because obviously women have been created quite differently than men have been created. So obviously they have their own set of qualities that they, when they bring to the table, then it's a whole different playing field. So for instance, like you guys know, women usually tend to be more empathetic. So when there are conflict resolutions, or when there is any kind of problem in the workspace, or there are any kind of conflicts, then women are relatively better at handling that, because they're more empathetic, they're more compassionate. They're not like, okay, so if somebody, like just hypothetically speaking, if somebody was unable to work on a specific date or time that they said that they would be working, then it's not like you're fired, or they won't be scolding them right on the spot. They would talk it out with them, they would discuss it with them, and then they would be like, okay, it's completely fine, these issues happen with everyone, all right? So they bring this compassion to the table, which I think is really good for overall company's culture. So definitely women have their own personalities, men have their own personalities. And when the two forces of men and women are combined, then it's a whole different playing field that's really beneficial for the organization, for the team that's working at the organization, and so on and so forth. So yeah. Do we have any other questions?
Sir, I think your mic is on mute.
Okay, so my
I have
mic was
just
on mute.
this
Yeah.
last, sorry, I just have this last request that would you be willing to give your expert advice if we need it during the next a month or two while we develop our game?
Yeah, sure, definitely. I'm actually quite active on LinkedIn and Twitter. Let me just send you my social handles so that you can easily reach out to me over there. So that's my LinkedIn, and my Twitter is, I think it's, no, I think it's, what is my Twitter? Just a second. I think it's this one. Let me just search. Wait. Yeah, it is that. Yes, it is that.
Okay.
Yep.
So I have a question that there was actually one of my company employee has been listening to us secretly because he requested me that he wants to listen to the talk because he already is familiar with you and the people in Karachi, the Flutter Karachi team. So he just texted me the message, and he's saying that since now you've been delivering talks here and there and on the Flutter, and his question is that is preparing for the talks really help to you get deep understanding of the concepts that you talk about? Has it been really helpful?
That is an amazing question, in my opinion, because yes, it definitely helps me out. So I got into public speaking in the sense of delivering talks on Flutter about June 2020, just like last year. So it hasn't even been full 12 months. So what I usually do is that because it's entirely up to us that when we're pitching that, okay, for this event, we'll be delivering a talk, then it's entirely up to us what topic we want to give a talk on. So usually for every talk, I usually pick a new topic that I either have not that much of knowledge at the moment. I just have limited knowledge, or some topic that I'm eager to explore. So yeah, so that's what I usually do. So even this these slides that I was just sharing a while ago while I was giving this talk on game development in Flutter. So before that, I hadn't created any game in Flutter. The only game that I had created was that bubble popping game, and even that I did was just a pet project. Okay. But proper game development I did for the sake of this talk because I wanted to personally explore game development in much more detail in Flutter as possible. So what I did was that I was able to create two games, this cat game and the other Pokeball game. And literally I coded both of these games within 6 hours, right the night before the talk. Okay, so I remember the event was on Saturday. It was on Saturday morning, I think 10 a.m. And I was up at night and I was able to code it between 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. roughly. Yeah, that's all it took me to learn these concepts and to create the game. So that's how long it took me. So that's just an example. Other than that, most of the times whenever I'm preparing a talk, the topic that I usually select is one that I'm eager to explore. So that helps me gain even deeper insights into that specific topic. So it really helps me, it helps the community. So it's a win-win situation for everyone.
Yeah, thank you. And now Samia's hand is raised, so I think she wants to ask a question.
Okay, I just have a small question that why is the corporate sector of Pakistan, I mean, are they receptive to the idea of apps? Like why, whenever I see these apps, they are rated so low. I don't think if they pay any, regard to what the customer or the users are commenting on, because here in UAE, everything is just app. So the prevalence of app in UAE, and when I compare the same receptivity of Pakistani people and corporate sector especially, what is their approach towards having their app presence?
Okay, so that usually depends on on the app, on what software houses or what companies or what developers we're talking about here in Pakistan, right? Because this depends on this basically depends on developer to developer. So for instance, when we had created our loyalty application for Coffee Wagera, and it was there on Play Store, and for the first couple of weeks it was also trending there. So on the trends we saw that there were applications for restaurants and other eateries in Pakistan as well, and they had a pretty low rating on Play Store. All right. Now, why the developers were not paying heed to that? I really can't comment much on that, because it all boils down to who the developer is, who the company is. Sometimes the companies themselves are least bothered about that. They're like, okay, you know, that general quote unquote Pakistani mindset that normal ऑपरेशन से तो हमारी अर्निंग हो रही है ना, तो ऐप का क्या फायदा. मतलब they're well recognized, well renowned brands, and even if they receive really bad feedback on Play Store or App Store for their applications, they're like, who cares, हमारे पास orders आ रहे हैं, हमारे पास revenue आ रहा है, who cares about this little speed bump, right? So, and they're like, and the companies that I'm talking about are those companies that are running paid marketing campaigns on televisions, on social media.
Exactly. And yes, and just an example, I think even Pakistan Stock Exchange does not have an app of its own. So it's very surprising.
Yeah, but you know what, actually, in the recent turn of events, we have seen a lot of digital improvements and enhancements that have happened over the past couple of years, I would say. For instance, before we didn't have any application for FBR for filing our own taxes, but now they do. And similarly, with time, they are digitizing most of their things. So I think within 5 to 10 years, we should see a significant improvement in applications that are affiliated with government. For instance, if you look at 10 years ago, I don't think we had any application for booking railway tickets. But now we do, even though it's not that good, but it's there. It's something to work with, right? Though obviously awareness aista aa rahi hai, and people are working on it eventually. So I think eventually we will be able to see some improvements in the next couple of years, inshallah.
Just to give a perspective, you know, everybody knows the Daud group of Engro and all that, you know, and the group has been there for about a century. Their combined wealth is still less than the wealth created by the founders of Kareem in like 5-7 years. So I think in future you cannot ignore technology sectors, and all these, by the way, Engro and all these big groups of Pakistan, they are working to enter into the tech sector one way or the other through their software houses or their apps. And you know, now is a time that nobody can ignore this anymore. It's the only sector that has been growing hugely, and businessmen, all these states, sooner or later they will be the believers. They will believe in tech, and they will
but the surprising thing is that they have been laggards in a broader perspective, you know, like they are cash rich companies, billions of, I mean, I think for 3 years, I think Engro has been sitting on billions and billions of cash looking for opportunities where to deploy, and they could not.
And you know, their loss is our gain. You know, their loss is the gain of all the 20 people in this you know, discussion. It's our gain. Now technology, anybody sitting in their drawing room and perhaps collaborating with a couple of people can compete with them. And you know, because since our generation understands the importance and the power of these things, sort of, you know, it's something which is these states are, it's not on their radar. It did not have been in their radar. उन्होंने देखा नहीं था. They cannot see कि क्या हो रहा है. And all of a sudden they are awakened by the reality कि ये तो बहुत से numbers हैं. और अब आपके ट्रेडिशनल मीडिया जो है लास्ट डेकेड में बहुत ज्यादा उसका रेवेन्यू था. ट्रेडिशनल मीडिया का रेवेन्यू खत्म हो गया है. दे आर ऑल द those anchors, they are coming to YouTube and all that because they've been laggard, they've been behind 5-10 years, और उनको all of a sudden they don't know what hit them. So
exactly. And just to give an example, or just to give some context here, if we just look at the previous year when COVID hit and everything went into lockdown, okay? So it was then that so many businesses realized that we were literally relying on physical, on a physical environment to sustain ourselves, to be operational and to earn a revenue. And then when we were hit with COVID, it was then that so many businesses realized, oh crap, we didn't have a safety net at all. And then they were like, okay, we need to have a digital presence as well. So there's so many businesses, so many big businesses that didn't even have the slightest bit of digital presence. And it was then that they realized, okay, we need to have a digital presence. We need to have, we need to be active on social media. We need to run this campaign or that campaign in order to sustain ourselves, in order to generate orders and so on. So it's literally the technology का तो boom आ रहा है, ठीक है. साथ साथ factors like these or circumstances like these will eventually force the people's, it will force the Pakistani entrepreneurs who are not that tech savvy, कि भाई अब it's high time, it's now or never. You either do it or you're just long gone and you're forgotten, ठीक है. So even people who are not as such adapting to technology even today, they will be forced to in the near future. So yeah, I mean, technology is something that's unavoidable.
okay, we can take one last question and then we'll have to like wrap it up. One last question. Who would that be? Someone new. Faiz, do you have a question? Misbah, Ali Adil, Farwa, Farhan. By the way, I had like 10 to 15 questions while you were talking. So we can, probably, yeah, a couple of things, you talked about carpooling in the beginning and you mentioned airlift and the other swivel. And why were you talking about it? I did not get that. And is there a carpooling service which is peer-to-peer and people actually driving the cars, not the buses?
Okay, so the reason that I was speaking about that was because I wanted to speak touch a base on the investor mindset here, or basically just touch base on the fact that when people they graduate from universities and they have a startup idea, and sometimes they have the most amazing ideas ever. Okay, I'm not denying that. And they have the tech skills to develop those things as well. So they have the tech expertise idea and they develop it into a fully functioning app. And the first thing that they do is that they run after investors. Why am I saying that? Because I have been through that phase. I have been part of that phase. Like right after creating something, we're like, okay, now in order to use it, in order to make a business out of it, we need investment. Okay, that's the general mindset of people of our age, at least, and people who are graduating from universities. So I wanted to touch base on that. Because carpooling was something which was there. It was right in front of our eyes, but we hadn't really paid much heed to it. So अगर हम लोग यूनिकॉर्न्स की बात करें, ठीक है, स्टार्टअप कल्चर की बात करें, तो स्टार्टअप कल्चर पाकिस्तान में कहाँ से आया? It came with Food Panda, it came with Kareem. And then after that, the startups that gained most traction and momentum, it was Airlift and Swivel, which came just, I think, in 2019. Okay? So the reason for mentioning that was just कि अगर आप एक startup start कर रहे होते हो तो what's the general flow, what's the process flow that happens? It's like you have an idea, ठीक है, then you do your market research on that. ठीक है, what elements do you even research on when you're conducting your market research? कि okay, अगर हम लोग इस market में launch करेंगे, किस मार्केट में कहाँ पर लॉन्च करना चाहिए, क्या हमारे डेमोग्राफिक्स हैं, कौन हमारे टारगेट ऑडियंस हैं. There are so many factors that you have to consider. ठीक है, once you've done your created your feasibility report that yes, it would be feasible to proceed with this startup or with this project, then you put it into execution. ठीक है, you either develop it yourself or you have your team develop it for you. Then once it has been developed, you initially या तो आप अपना पैसा खुद लगाते हो या फिर आप अपना एक यूजर बेस खड़ा कर लेते हो, इतना यूजर बेस खड़ा कर लेते हो कि कल को अगर आपको इन्वेस्टमेंट चाहिए हो तो when you're pitching to the investors, they look at the numbers. ठीक है, they look at how many users you have. वो लोग because pre-seed funding का मुझे इतना I don't exactly remember the criteria for pre-seed funding, लेकिन अगर आपको दूसरी किस्म की फंडिंग चाहिए होती है तो उसमें वो आपके प्रोजेक्शंस को देख रहे होते हैं, आपके करंट नंबर्स को देख रहे होते हैं, आपके फोरकास्ट को देख रहे होते हैं कि क्वार्टरली एस्टिमेट्स को देख रहे होते हैं कि कितना चर्न एंड बर्न हो रहा है, कितना अर्न हो रहा है एंड ऑल दैट स्टफ. So the reason for mentioning airlift and swivel, it was just an example to just touch base on the startup.
But by the way, I think absolute last question from me. Absolute last question.
Okay.
And that is, I've always believed, and I've in one thing, and I'll tell you what that is. And I've always felt that I am in an absolute minority, and I really want your opinion on it. That like I believe that most of the app ideas can be developed without taking any large investment from outside. You can bootstrap,
Exactly.
like you said. And what's your opinion? And a lot of people historically has been chasing those millions of dollars, so to speak, and then after 2-3 years, somehow mysteriously those startups vanish into thin air. That has been happening in the last decade in Pakistan.
Yes.
But I think, and when you investigate, and even the other day I was looking at a couple of stories, and and the problem comes when you have external funding and a couple of investors, you are used to the easy money, and investors giving you high salaries and all that, and in that sort of mindset, the customer and the app development and that real business is lost. And I think some sort of artificial sort of ballooning or artificial sort of वो एक artificial तरीके से आप उसको करते हो. Airlift जैसी app, for example, I'm not criticizing. There's definitely a business case for if you want to really go big, you have to but I think Airlift जैसी app जो है ना, मेरे ख्याल में, theoretically speaking, I might be wrong, and and I have no shame in being wrong publicly here. So I mean, 2-3 entrepreneurs can maybe 40-50 लाख रुपए से एक साल में इस तरह की सर्विस खड़ी कर सकते हैं, and then probably they might spend 40-50 लाख रुपया, करोड़ रुपया, और उसको शुरू में फाइनेंस करने के लिए you have to give incentives to the drivers, and you don't really need too much money for it. I want your feedback on it.
Okay, you're absolutely right. पहली बात तो ये कि there are so many applications that can be created and that can be successfully launched and even operated without quote unquote investment. ठीक है, मतलब it literally honestly depends on your own mindset as well, and it all boils down to how you can make that happen. ठीक है, so no doubt about that. Bootstrapping is definitely an option that I strongly abide by. Because coming from the bootstrapping experience, alhamdulillah, the growth has been slow yet steady. Matlab, literally rock solid foundation, alhamdulillah. ठीक है? The other thing that you spoke of is this, that there are many startups that once they receive investment, after a couple of years, they just vanish into thin air. This is actually something that my partner and we were talking about just yesterday, or I think just today. the reason being that when you get investment from a third party, okay, so technically everyone's happy, everyone's getting bonuses, everyone's getting salaries, they're printing their own merchandise, they're running their marketing campaigns and all that stuff. So they start to pay. I'm not criticizing everyone, and not everyone does that. Some people are really smart about that, but some people are don't. The people that are don't, they start focusing more on the material aspect of things rather than the customer centricity side of things, because they tend to forget that this business, this startup is first and foremost for the consumers, because your consumers are your money makers, right? They forget that. They're like, okay, we have investment, तो डेवलपमेंट साथ साथ होती जाएगी या ये चीज साथ साथ होती जाएगी. So they start giving customers less focus because they have money to spare. So they start spend this. They literally start wasting money just like that. So obviously some people do that. Some people don't. If a startup is getting investment, then they should use it wisely. अगर कहीं पर research की ज़रूरत है तो उसके लिए use करें, growth की ज़रूरत है office space कम करें उसके लिए use करें, but फजूल खर्ची के लिए use ना करें. And obviously they should not forget that their first priority should always remain the client or the consumer or the end customer. ठीक है? So that's one thing. The other thing was that, sorry, what was the last thing that you mentioned or asked?
I think that was it. I mean, I just wanted your feedback on it.
Yeah, so I think generally overall, I pretty much agree with you on that. And yeah, the last thing that you mentioned was that after a startup has been made, like you gave an example of Airlift, after that, probably it would take another team about 1 to 2 years and a sufficient amount of money to develop the exact same thing, which in my opinion, no doubt that's completely true. But what actually the reality is this, okay, and coincidentally enough, this is the same thing that we were speaking about today with one of our clients. We had a meeting with them just before I popped into our call today. So हम लोग आज यही बात कर रहे थे that the first Food Panda was obviously very difficult to make. The first Kareem, the first Uber, it was very difficult to make. The first Airlift was obviously very difficult to make. Now, obviously, once something has been made, people look into that, people study that, some people even reverse engineer code so they get a sufficient idea how things have been structured or coded. So there are so many practices कि उसको देख कर लोग study कर enough sense कि अब हम इसको replicate कर सकते हैं तो कैसे कर सकते हैं, and बिल्कुल कर सकते हैं. But इधर मैं आपको एक example दूंगी, like if you guys have seen similar videos on YouTube, okay, usually when someone creates a song, okay, if someone releases a song, then usually there are people who are like, oh, I did a remake of this song using just my fingers or using just the piano. Matlab, how easily I was able to do that. So even with music, it's not even something technical, but even with music, it's like this. Obviously, for the very first time, it took a lot of efforts and a lot of thought into that process कि उसको किस तरह से उस तरह से बनाया जाए. Then obviously, once something is out in the market, you can study as much as you want, and you can make the exact same replica in a relatively shorter time with sufficient funds. So yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Sakina. We are really very thankful to have you, and we'll definitely, like Samira said, we will be contacting you if we need your when we will need your expert opinion on it. And just I am offering this course again in starting in 4th of June. So I might need your guest lecture next time again. So very happy to have you here. And Karachi is really bustling with the Flutter activities. And I was talking to some of the people in Lahore to get to do some similar things and awake the Flutter community in Lahore as well. So we are also working to copy your model from Karachi. Thank you very much. And we ran 30 minutes above the class, but we are very happy to have you here. We learned a lot, and I think everybody got a lot of things out of this talk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for this amazing opportunity. I myself really enjoyed this session, and to all of the people who are sending me positive comments in the chat section. I couldn't reply to everyone individually, but thank you. I'm really glad that you all enjoyed this session and you found this really insightful. And yeah, thank you. It means a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, take care. Love us.